Hello and welcome to Dawn Chorus Writes, a Miraculous Ladybug fanfiction and audiofic. This is the completed season 1 of Romeo and his Marinette, written and narrated by myself, Dawn. Hello. So I hope you enjoy it. Massive shout out and thank you very much to Kim for the use of her beautiful stunning artwork in the thumbnail. So make sure you go and send her lots of love. All her information is listed down below. Make sure you send me lots of love by smashing that like button. Comment down below what you think of it. Share to others who might enjoy it, and make sure you subscribe so you do not miss out on any future series, treats and one-shots. And I hope you enjoy. Part 1. Marinette's POV. With only 3 hours of sleep, Marinette rolled out of bed and into school, with a cloud of exhaustion fogging up her mind. All she needed to do was survive a few hours of school with no drama involved and no new Akuma, and then she could crash back into bed. "Hey," she muttered at Alia and Nino as she wrapped her thick cardigan around herself and used her arm as a pillow. She was even too tired to become flustered around Adrien as he ambled into the seat in front of her, not noticing how he too was equally drained. "Hey, back," Alia said, giving her a quizzical look, taking in Adrien and then shooting back a shrug at Nino. "What's up with these two?"
"Beats me. You would think they've been up all night studying together by the looks of them."
They both sniggered at the thought. Alia leaned in a little closer to Nino.
"Yeah, she wishes."
Marinette gave her friend a poke in the ribs. "Hey, watch those fingers." "But seriously? Girl, wake up. Miss Bussier is going to give you a note if you're not careful. Why are you so tired anyhow? I'm the one who should be falling asleep on you, being up half of the night taking pictures of last night's battle." Alia gave Marinette another nudge in the ribs.
"But it was worth it alone for the great shot I got of Cat Noir being squeezed hugged by a bear as if he'd been the teddy."
Adrien let out a sigh that no one seemed to notice. But all she could do was let out another moan. Last night's battle had been an exhausting one, as it took her and Cat half of the night trying to figure out where the Akuma was hidden on a giant walking teddy bear, which didn't look like the cuddly kind, but had been a young girl's tease at a sleepover. For the next month, we will be studying Shakespeare, and what better play for February than Romeo and Juliet? Miss Bussier declared at the front of the class to a mixture of responses of cheers and moans. "You will work in pairs to perform a scene from the play in front of the class, and before you ask, I will choose the roles. The first one will be the famous balcony scene between our beloved star-crossed lovers. Now, who will play our Romeo?" Most of the boys shrank back into their seats and avoided eye contact. "Mr. Aggress, since you are so attentive this morning, you shall play our first Romeo." Nino laughed and gave the half-asleep Adrien a gentle shove.
"Yes, miss,"
he muttered, waving his hand in the air. "Excellent, and as for his Juliet," she gazed around the room and smiled at Marinette, "I will choose the other attentive student. Marinette, you will play Juliet." Alia sniggered and gave Marinette another nudge in the ribs. "Girl, you are Juliet and Adrien is Romeo." Alia moved in a little closer. "Now you have your chance." Marinette peeled her eyes open, the words slowly filtering into her mind. What had Alia said? "I'm what?" "Juliet!" Alia's eyes widened with excitement. "And Adrien is Romeo." No, she couldn't. Read, perform as Juliet to Adrien? No, this must be a mistake. Marinette's eyes darted from Alia to Miss Bussier and then finally landed on Adrien, who had an equally confused expression on his face. A hand instantly shot up, trying to grab her teacher's attention. "Miss, I can't. I'm no good at performing." Marinette felt her cheeks go crimson at the mere thought of fumbling over her words in front of the entire class. I will be Juliet if Marinette doesn't want to be, declared Lila from the back row as Marinette saw a look of panic form across Adrien's face, which darted from the back of the room before landing on her. Please, Marinette, Adrien said, pleading, his eyes locking onto her as she received another nudge in her ribs. Marinette threw a glare at Alia to cut out the encouragement, giving her side a quick rub. Oh, ginger snaps. I'll do it, miss, Marinette said in a squeaky voice as a hand landed on either side of her cheeks. What on earth was happening? How was she going to pull this off without making a fool of herself? Thank you, Marinette, and I'm sure you'll be fine. You have plenty of time to practice, and maybe, in the future, don't use my lesson as your nap time. You or Mr. Agress. Miss Boussier smiled at her, knowing that this was so much worse than receiving a note. As for the rest of the class, Alia and Nino will play Romeo and Juliet from the death scene. Her best friend gave Nino their special high five. Chloe can be... Marinette zoned out as her thoughts descended into an anxiety-fed spiral for the remainder of the class. This was the last thing she needed on top of everything else. Marinette? Adrien's voice brought her out of a continuous loop of failed performances. He was giving her a soft smile, which spread into his warm cheeks. Thanks for agreeing. I'd much prefer you to be my Juliet. I mean co-star. Yeah, how you didn't want to be. So thanks. He rubbed the back of his neck and darted his eyes back onto the play on her desk. She followed his gaze down and saw the image of a more traditional Romeo and Juliet embracing one another on the front cover of the book. Oh, yeah, no problem. I love this play. I mean, I did, but I'm just nervous. I'm not one for, you know. She gestured to the front of the class and then at her fellow students who were packing their bags to leave. Her eyes caught his for a moment, feeling the blush return and then back to the book, brushing a stray piece of hair behind her ear. Well, we could meet up and go over the lines. You could come round to mine, if you want, to rehearse. Adrien placed the last of his books into his bag. In the corner of her eye, she saw Alia's elbow coming towards her, but swerved out of the way with an added warning look at her bestie. Yeah, we could, I could. Great! Adrien beamed for a split second, and then his smile vanished. I can't do this afternoon, Chinese studies, but how about tomorrow? Her eyes widened at the thought of spending the day with him, speaking words of love even though they weren't her own. Saturday? With you? At your house? The soft smile returned to his lips as the red deepened in his cheeks. Yeah, I mean, unless you already have plans. Then she remembered she had arranged to go to the cinema to see the latest viewing of Jagged Stone's new film. Oh, Luke and I were going to... Adrien cast his attention back to his bag as he placed it across his shoulders. Oh, I see. Never mind, we can do it. Marinette was surprised to see a hint of disappointment in his face. Maybe Saturday was the only day he could rehearse with all he needed to fit in with his schedule. Plus, she was sure Luca would understand if she postponed their catch-up. But I suppose I could rearrange with Luca for Sunday instead. So yeah, Saturday would work, if that's best for you. Great. He's free, she's now free. Can we all get to the next class? Nino said, receiving an annoyed look from Alia as they both stood at the doorway of the now empty class. It's Mr. Travers' class. What? He's strict, Nino said, shrugging his shoulders. Marinette finished placing the last of her books inside her backpack, but held on to the copy of the play in her hand. What time will be best? I mean, if you're sure it'll be okay to come around and practice, that is.
Adrien stepped down and glanced back at Marinette. I will speak to Natalie, but I don't see an issue with it. For school, after all. Should we say 9?
9? Oh, day.
Suddenly becoming flustered at the thought, Marinette stumbled on the last step as Adrien reached out and grabbed hold of her. The sensation of his fingers pressing into the thick fabric as he continued to hold on as she steadied herself. Yeah, I don't know about you, but Shakespeare has to be one hard to get right. She nodded her head and noticed his hands were still around her waist, but their friends had left. Thanks, Alia. His eyes followed the direction of hers as he jumped back a little, dropping his hold in the process. Nino is right. We had better get to the next class. She picked up her bag, which had dropped in her awkwardness, and pushed that moment out of her head. He was just being kind. It's not that he would mean anything by it, she kept telling herself, feeling the ghost sensation of his touch still pressed into her. During the next lesson, she had come up with a plan not to humiliate herself with Adrien during the project. She would read the entire play at least twice over in the next 24 hours and stream a copy of Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet. Granted, it wasn't traditional, but it was a great adaptation. She was grateful this one time that Adrien had to go home for lunch today for some sort of fitting, which meant she continued to study, muttering the lines under her breath. Marinette, you know this project only makes up a slither of our grade. You don't have to get it perfect, you know. Plus, like Miss said, we have a few weeks until we need to present it to the rest of the class. So you can chill. You're even making me feel nervous about it. Alia leaned closer and took an apple slice from Marinette's tray, whilst Nino sat back listening to his tunes. But I'm rehearsing with Adrien tomorrow. I need to know it well enough to say the lines in front of him. I mean, I struggle as is with the words in front of him. Never mind being in Shakespearean. Marinette held the play in the air and pointed out some of the words. Thous, dos, canst, thee. I mean, who even spoke like this? Girl, don't give me that. I know you're a fan of Shakespeare and certain sonnets, so why pretend, especially to Adrien, that you don't? Simple, to reduce his expectations. I mean it, Alia. I don't know if I'll be able to get my words out. Being alone with him a whole day? I thought you two were just friends now. After 3 years, you had given up trying to be anything more? Alia raised an eyebrow at her whilst tilting her head to the side. Yeah, I have, but I still don't want to let him down. And the kiss has nothing to do with it? There doesn't need to be a kiss. It's not mentioned in the play. Marinette's fingers skipped over the text. Girl, seriously? It's the balcony scene where they have just declared they love one another and decided to get married, and you're telling me they wouldn't kiss? Alia raised her eyebrows at Marinette, holding her stare until the words sank in. No, surely not. Adrien wouldn't be thinking, would he? Marinette shook her head rapidly. No, in front of the class? Not in front of the girls. She gestured to the side table which her friends sat round. Then her eyes shot open. Not in front of Chloe and Lila. No, I can't. So you're telling me you are finally going to get a chance to kiss Adrien and you are going to take a pass because of Chloe and Lila? Alia tilted her head forward, searching her bestie's expression. But what if he thinks we are? What if he suggests tomorrow? Never mind in front of the class during the performance. Alia, it's too much. But then what if he refuses to kiss me? Turns me down as the mere thought makes him uncomfortable. Okay, you're starting to make me feel dizzy with all this back and forth. But I'm sure you'll probably not hit that moment tomorrow. Plus, what's the big deal? It's not like it's your first kiss. Yes, with Adrien, but Alia paused and read the look on Marinette's face. I thought you and Luca had, when you were dating? That one time in the cinema? No, we nearly did, but... Marinette stopped herself from continuing as she kissed Cat a couple of times as Ladybug, but did that count? Are they really classed as kisses? Or would this potential one with Adrien be her first kiss? But could you call it that if it was for a school project? Okay, that changes things a bit, but what if you think of it like this? It's Romeo and Juliet kissing, not Marinette and Adrien. So becoming the character, be like an actor. They kiss all the time and mean nothing by it. Unless you want it to mean something, I'm willing to admit that you still have feelings for Adrien. Grateful for the sound of the bell ringing out around them, Marinette didn't say another word as she picked up a tray and headed off to the afternoon class. Now with the added pressure of not only speaking Shakespeare, words of love to Adrien, but also the idea of a kiss. The rest of the afternoon had been a bit of a daze, ignoring the symbols of pressure of Adrien sitting in front of her and avoiding any eye contact he gave her way. Okay, granted, they had become better friends now. She stammered over her words less, and after 3 years of being friend-zoned, she had given up on the idea that Adrien would see her that way. Plus, there was still the threat of Shadow Moth, which meant even if she wanted a boyfriend, the possibility of having one, keeping one after what had happened to Luca? No, it wasn't meant to be, and doing this play was a distraction for a few weeks, and then everything will go back to how it was before with nothing changing. Then, how had she found herself later that night, standing on her balcony with Romeo and Juliet in her hands, reading out the lines? I, me. Oh, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Deny thy father and refuse thy name, or if thou wilt not, be but sworn my love, and I will no longer be a Capulet. It is but thy name is my enemy. Thou art thyself not a Montague. What's a Montague? It is nor hand, nor foot, nor arm, nor face, nor any other part belonging to a man. Oh, be some other name. What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. So Romeo would, were he not Romeo called, retain that dear perfection which he owes without that title. Romeo, doth thy name, and for that name which is no part of thee, take all myself. She unclenched the book from her chest and let out a little sigh. I take thee at thy word. Call me but love, and I'll be new baptized. Henceforth, I'll never be Romeo. Who's there? Kitty, is that you? What are you doing here, spouting out Shakespeare? Marinette leant over the edge and stared down at the figure in the street. Cat, using his baton, rose himself up to her balcony. By a name, I know not how to tell thee who I am. My name, dear saint, is hateful to myself, because it is an enemy to thee. Had I written it, I would tear the word. Cat Noir jumped off the railing and gave Marinette a bow. You said it so wonderfully, as if I was looking at Juliet herself, standing out on her balcony, waiting for... I couldn't resist joining in. For a moment, pretending to be your Romeo, and you were my Marinette. He took a step closer to her and gave her a sweet smile. But why is my princess standing on her balcony at night reading such lines? Don't laugh, but it's part of school. I have to perform it in front of the class and rehearse it tomorrow. I wanted to make sure I got the words right. She flicked through the pages and avoided his gaze, which seemed fixed on her. Well, from that performance alone, my princess, I would say you have nothing to worry about. Yes, by myself, or I was when I started, is different than standing in front of him and performing in front of the class. Why would it be different in front of him? Do you not want to be partnered with him? Is that it? No, it's not that. It's just... It's hard to explain, Kitty. I mess up my words around him on the best of days, and then... It's just something Alia said has put on this extra burden, that's all. How do you know Shakespeare so well, Kat? Let's just say I'm a kitty with hidden talents. Oh, is that so? She gave him a playful smile back. Then does my kitty have any tips for me, so I don't make a fool of myself? Kat took a step closer and placed his hand on her shoulder, causing her to look up and catch his piercing stare. I would be more worried about your Romeo. How could he compose himself when he has you standing in front of him, playing his Juliet, saying the words like that? Oh, what, Kitty? Would you prefer to be my Romeo? She breathed, knowing a blush was forming on her cheeks equal to his. I would happily be your Romeo, my princess, but I would insist we change the ending. He took a step back, looking a little flustered. But alas, you have been chosen another. I wish him luck, but don't worry about it, princess. I'm sure you'll do great. Thanks for the encouragement, Kitty. She placed her hand on top of his, taken by surprise as he lifted it to his lips, leaving a tingling sensation on her skin. Good night. Who needs a Juliet when you have a Marinette? He said, taking a last look back before jumping off to a nearby roof. Night, Romeo, she called after him. You enjoy. Part 2. Adrien, Kat's POV. Kat found himself bounding across the rooftops of Paris with an almost giddiness. He had everything planned out for his day with Marinette tomorrow, including speaking to his chef about what they could have for lunch. Natalie still needed to confirm with his father that it was suitable, but it was for school. How could he say no? And yet, he still couldn't believe he had been given this chance to spend a day with Marinette and finally figure out if she had feelings for him. Every day he had tried to suggest or encourage the idea of them possibly going out on a date, to be alone with just him. She would either bring Alia or Nino with her or kept using the word friend. And now, what? The ache he had felt in his heart as she mentioned going on a date with Luca? He had thought they had broken up, but maybe they were giving it another chance, and yet she was willing to change it for him. Surely that was a good sign, that she liked him. The look on her bashful face as he mentioned they could spend the day together to rehearse, and the touch of her waist through her cozy jumper when she stumbled, as he glimpsed her ocean eyes. I mean, she was willing to spend the day with him, literally spouting out words of love, given they were Romeo and Juliet's words, and the look of fear in her eyes as he caught her glancing at the text in the afternoon class. But he could coach her through it. That was what the day was meant to be, right? Rehearsing? A practice run for the first actual date? Maybe, just maybe, they might be actually together by the time they perform it. Okay, chill, Adrien. Cat, you are getting ahead of yourself again. Imagine the house and the 3 kids, and don't forget the hamster with his little face. No. She has to actually like you back. Speak her own words of love and not Juliet's. When he was homeschooled, his English tutor had been a huge fan of Shakespeare, and especially Romeo and Juliet, to the point he had gotten Adrien to analyse every part, along with 2 other plays, Hamlet and As You Like It, with the single line sticking out to him the most: "All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts." He had reminded him that although he was merely a player, directed by his father, in his life he will play many parts, and that the one he was currently in will exit and enter a new part, which happened to be Cat Noir. He had briefly looked over the scene before stepping out, remembering the words, as Plagg grumbled it was even too cheesy for him, and something about a guy called Will should have taken his advice. Adrien threw Plagg a questioning look, whilst all he got in return was a smirk before flying off into his cupboard, making some sort of weird chuckling sound that resembled him choking. Surely Plagg didn't mean Will? William? Shakespeare? Adrien shook his head, struggling to comprehend everything Plagg might have seen and done in his lifetime. No, now was not the time for that one. But then again, it might explain the ending to Romeo and Juliet, if Plagg and his love guru advice had anything to do with it. Cat couldn't help giggling at the absurd thought before refocusing on his own Juliet, his Marinette. From 2 roofs back, he saw the glowing light emit out of the circular window from his princess's bedroom, prompting the lines to flow out of him, telling himself he was merely using it to get into character, that he was simply Romeo, not Cat, not Adrien. But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, who is already sick and pale with grief, that thou her maid art far more fair than she. Be not her maid, since she is envious. Her vessel livery is but sick and green, and none but fools do wear it. Cast it off. Cat watched the skylight open and Marinette, his princess, climb out, holding a tray of steaming tea and a worn book and a thick woolen blanket. It is my lady. Oh, it is my love. Oh, that she knew she were. He grinned at how well the words were slotting into place in an effortless manner. She speaks, yet she says nothing. What of that? Her eyes discourses, I will answer it. Am I too bold? It's not me she speaks. 2 of the fairest stars in all the heaven, having some business, do entreat her eyes to twinkle in the spheres until they return. What if her eyes were there, they in her head? The brightness of her cheeks would shame those stars, as daylight doth a lamp. Her eyes in heaven would through the airy region stream, so bright that birds would sing, and think they were not night. See how she leans her cheek upon her hand. Oh, that I were a glove upon that hand, that I might touch that cheek. His grin was wide across his face, and his heart fluttered inside his chest as his princess did the exact action, as she leaned on the railings and caused every word he had just spoken to come true. He jumped the short distance until he was leaning against the chimney breast on her roof and watched her fold back the pages on the distressed book. Pacing back and forth, she muttered to herself and then glanced back at the book in frustration, throwing it onto the lounge chair to only dash over and pick it back up again seconds later. Cat chuckled, staring at his princess, and felt an aching glow in his chest he hadn't experienced before. "Ay me," Marinette sighed. "She speaks. Oh, speak again, bright angel, for thou art as glorious to this night, be ever my head, as is a winged messenger of heaven unto the white upturned wondering eyes of mortals that fall back to gaze on him, when he bestrides the lazy puffing clouds and sail upon the blossom of the air." Marinette lowered the book down, closed her eyes before darting them back open, speaking with a softness from her lips, which he suddenly found himself craving. "Oh, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Deny thy father and refuse thy name, or if thou wilt not, be but sworn my love, and I will no longer be a Capulet. It is but thy name that is my enemy. Thou art myself, not a Montague." "What's a Montague?" "It is nor hand, nor foot, nor arm, nor face, nor any other part belonging to a man." "Oh, be some other name." "What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. So Romeo would, were he not Romeo called, retain that dear perfection which he owes without that title. Romeo, doth thy name, and for that name which is no part of thee, take all myself." She unclenched the book from her chest and let out a little sigh. An impulsive thought sprang into his mind, and he decided to go with it. He leapt off the roof and stood below her balcony, yearning for her to allow him to become her Romeo. "I take thee at thy word. Call me but love, and I'll be new baptized. Henceforth, I never will be Romeo." "Who's there? Kitty, is that you? What are you doing here and spouting out Shakespeare?" Marinette leant over the edge and stared down at him with a wide smile and a deep blush in her cheeks that made her eyes sparkle. Cat, using his baton, rose himself up to her balcony. With barely any distance between them, he leaned in even closer, watching the blush deepen in her cheeks. "By a name? I know not how to tell thee who I am. My name, dear saint, is hateful to thyself, because it is an enemy to thee. Had I written it, I would tear the word." Cat Noir jumped off the railing and gave Marinette a bow. "You said it so wonderfully, as if I was looking at Juliet herself, standing out on her balcony, waiting for—" I couldn't resist joining in. For a moment, pretending to be your Romeo, and you are my Marinette." He took a step closer to her and gave her a sweet smile. "But why is my princess standing on her balcony at night, reading such lines?" "Don't laugh, but it's part of school. I have to perform it in front of the class and rehearse it tomorrow. I wanted to make sure I got the words right." He watched as she flicked through the pages and refused to look at him in the eye. Oh, how he wished she would. "Well, from that performance alone, my princess, I would say you have nothing to worry about." "Yes, by myself. Oh, I was when I started. It's different than standing in front of him and performing in front of the class." How she had said it caused a flicker of fear to appear. Was the idea of Adrien being her Romeo such a bad idea? Why would it be different in front of him? Do you not want to be partnered with him? Is that it?
No, it's not that. It's just... It's hard to explain, Kitty. I mess up my words around him on the best of days, and then it's just something Ali had said has put on this extra burden, that's all. How do you know Shakespeare so well, Kat?
Well, let's just say I'm a kitty with hidden talents. He couldn't help himself, wiggling his eyebrows at her and making the look of a worried shift to a smile.
Oh, is that so? She gave him a playful smile back. Then, does my kitty have any tips for me, so I don't make a fool of myself? Oh, how much he wanted to wrap her up in his arms, to stroke her cheek and mutter words of comfort, leaning in ever so. But instead he took a step closer and placed his hand on her shoulder, causing her to look up and catch his piercing stare. Oh, it took every strength in every fibre of his body not to lean in and kiss her. I would be more worried about your Romeo. How could he compose himself when he has you standing in front of him, playing his Juliet, saying the words like that? Oh, what, Kitty? Would you prefer to be my Romeo? He didn't know how much more he could take of this. If only she meant it. If only she felt for him what he felt for her. Knowing a blush was forming on his cheeks equals to hers. I would happily be your Romeo, my princess. But I would insist we change the ending. No, he couldn't make that move as Kat. Not when he had a chance as Adrien, where they could date under the sunshine and not by the moonlight. He took a step back. But at last you have been chosen another. I wish him luck. But don't worry about it, princess. I'm sure you'll do great. Thanks for the encouragement, Kitty. His heart skipped a beat as she placed a hand on top of his. Wanting so much to feel her skin against his own, he lifted her hand to his lips, breathing in the sweet scent of her vanilla hand cream as he brushed a kiss across the back of her hand, wishing, oh, if only. Good night. Who needs a Juliet when you have a Marinette? He jumped onto the railing and dared to take one more glance back, seeing the sparkle in her eyes. Night, Romeo, she called out. Her words suddenly gave him wings as he felt himself soaring back across the rooftops and into his bedroom. He threw himself down onto his bed, his arms outstretched. Claws in! Plag zoomed out and dashed straight to his cheese board, still on the coffee table. He placed a piece into the air and placed his other paw across his heart. It is the east, and Camembert is the sun. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious hunger, Plag said in a dramatic tone before planting a kiss on the cheese, chuckling to himself, and then swallowed the piece whole. Ha ha, you little gremlin. But did you hear her, Plag? She called me her Romeo. Oh, tonight was perfect. Apart from one thing. A kiss? Plag teased as he kissed another piece of cheese. Yes? No, that she even likes me that way. I wouldn't even dare ask for love right now. But if I had a chance for her to see me,
in a different light than friends. Plagg was in a strange teasing mood tonight, and Adrien rolled his eyes. Yeah, don't get me wrong, I love being her friend, but if I could tell her. But what if, after your little performance tonight, she ends up liking Cat instead of Adrien? Yeah, I might have gotten a little carried away, but I couldn't stop myself. Everything just kind of fitted together, like a magnetic pull. I couldn't resist. If she did choose Cat, that is, then at least I would be with my princess. Okay, Romeo, sleep is needed as your Juliet, your Marinette, is coming in the morning. Adrien let out a hearty chuckle and threw a pillow at Plagg. Hey, that's my pillow, smitten kitten. Adrien didn't say a word as he closed his eyes and replayed the last hour inside his mind, falling asleep with a soft smile across his lips.
Part 3. Adrien, Cat's POV. Adrien's alarm went off as he bounced out of bed, grinning at himself for the day ahead. He had an hour before Marinette would get here, which meant he had time for a shower, spray enough Febreze around the room to rid the smell of cheese, and make sure everything he had planned for the day would go smoothly. That was until Natalie FaceTimed him. Morning, Natalie. My friend Marinette should be arriving in the next hour. He paused when he saw her expression fall. I'm sorry, Adrien, but you will need to cancel with Marinette, as your father has arranged a photo shoot this morning. Please get yourself together in the selected clothes and meet us downstairs in 30 minutes. Natalie said in her formal tone, but her face said otherwise. But that was to take place next weekend. I have arranged everything for today. It is for school and it's important. Please, Natalie. Adrien, your father has decided and it's final. Please inform your friend that you'll need to rearrange for another time. Without another word being said, Natalie ended the call. I can't believe he has done this. He knew this was important, more so than any other ad campaign where they all look the same. Oh, why can't I just have a simple life and not be Adrien Agreste, the model, fashion icon? That's not me. And how am I going to explain this to Marinette? Adrien huffed, picked up his phone and began scrolling through his contacts until a cute picture of him and Marinette with her name underneath. Hey kid, Marinette gets it. She will understand, Plagg remarked, carrying cheese to Adrien's bag. That's not the point, Plagg. Everything was perfect for today. Adrien sighed, paused, and took a deep breath before pressing on her number. Hey, Adrien, am I late? Did we change the time? I'll be there. Oh, soon. I just need to... Marinette's voice brought a glow to his heart as she fumbled over her words, whilst an image of her dashing around her bedroom in a panic sprang into his mind, a scene he had seen as Cat a few times before, which only made him love her more. Marinette, wait. Yes? What's wrong? My father has arranged a photo shoot for today, so unfortunately... You have to cancel. Oh, I get it. I understand. That's a shame not to hang out. I mean rehearse, the play. But it's fine. Don't worry about me. I mean the play. We can do it at another time. He could imagine her rosy cheeks as she probably over-gestured on the other side of the phone. Thanks, Marinette, for understanding, and
Sorry for turning your day upside down at the last minute. No, it's fine. No need to worry about me. I will just stick to my previous plans instead, and I hope your shoot goes well for you. A memory flashed into his head of her mentioning plans with Luca and going to see a film together. He had to cancel the day he had planned to spend with Marinette, and now what? Luca was going to take his place? Was he really so easy to replace? Did he mean so little to her? Not that he expected her just to wait around for him to be able to slot her in. A notification ping brought him out of his loop and realized Marinette was saying his name. Adrien? Are you still there? Is everything all right? Yes. Sorry, I have to go. He couldn't help sounding disappointed, but Natalie had already sent him one reminder, and if he was late, it didn't bear thinking about the repercussions. Oh, okay. Bye then. Before he replied, the phone on the other end went dead. In an act of frustration, he flung his phone onto his bed and quickly dashed for a shower. After 5 minutes and feeling a tad calmer, he got changed into the outfit his father had designed for him. Your phone buzzed from Marinette, Plag teased, floating above it and peering at the screen. Plag, a little privacy, please? He tried to sound disgruntled, but couldn't. As he bounded for the bed and bounced as he landed, not caring for the creases they might cause. He let out a chuckle at the notification of a name on the screen, wondering what more she needed to add. Marinette. Hey, I was just thinking, you could always come round to mine and rehearse on Sunday if you're free. I mean, I don't have the same amount of space, but it might be easier for you. Just a thought. Let me know, and I hope you have some fun at the shoot. Kiss. He read the message over 3 times, smiling. No, grinning to himself. She still wanted to meet up and been thoughtful enough to offer to meet at hers, knowing it would be easier and less stressful for him. Knowing him so well, was this merely a friendship element, or did she know him so well because maybe there could be more? She ended it with a kiss after all. Okay, now was not the time to overthink it. Adrien. Yeah, that would be great, Marinette. If you're sure your parents don't mind, I would love to. No, delete, too eager. It would be easier. Thank you. Does he add on a little remark on the end, commenting on her day, yet not wanting to hear about her date with Luca? The mere thought caused a pain to slice through his heart. Instead, he pressed send, forgetting to add the kiss to the end. He yanked himself from his bed, placed the phone in his pocket, and grabbed his bag on the way out the door, whilst keeping some of his focus on the silence coming from his pocket, hoping for a buzz in reply. He was climbing into the car when he felt his notification go off his phone. Flinging his bag in first, he quickly slid into the seat and saw Marinette's name on the front as he tugged his lips into a lined smile. Marinette. Sure thing, Adrien, and it's no problem at all. My parents enjoy seeing you. Let me know what time is good for you. Kiss. He could no longer control the thin smile as he read the message. His lips released into an enormous grin and no longer cared if his bodyguard could see. She was so kind and thoughtful, but his gaze lingered over the second kiss she had left him and how she had left it for him to reply, talking about times for tomorrow, but oh, how much he wanted to see her now, craved to see the rosy blush across her cheeks that made her ocean eyes come alive and the sensation of them crashing against his heart. Then an idea formed in his mind. What if Kat popped by again, just to help her run the lines in time for tomorrow? Help her with the confidence? He felt giddy at the idea. Knowing it was her parents' only day off and they might have a late night rehearsing as Cat and his princess, Adrien replied, "How about 10 a.m. so it's not too early for your parents? Sorry again about today. I would much rather rehearse with you than do this shoot. Kiss." Was that too bold? Oh, he didn't care. Let her know he had feelings for her. If only he could tell her face to face. Then the anxiety formed as he watched for the 3 dots to appear for the rest of the car journey. Just as he stepped out of the car, he felt the vibration in his hand, which sent sparks flying to his heart. Marinette. You don't need to keep apologizing, you know. I understand. Plus, it gives me time to work on this new project. Kiss. Then she sent 2 more picture messages. The first was a sketch of Romeo and Juliet, but wearing something he had never seen before, a more modern look. The second image was of fabric displayed across the ground and chalk lines to cut along. He couldn't help pausing in step, causing his bodyguard to literally push him forward towards a makeshift makeup tent. His eyes locked on the screen and the image of him as Romeo standing next to his Marinette. She even added in his hairstyle. She was designing them an outfit. That was how she was going to spend her day, and not with Luca. Instead, she was going to be thinking about him. Marinette. I hope you don't mind. It's just Alia said we would need to pick something to wear from the drama closet for the mini performance, and well, I would much rather make something, unless you wouldn't. I get that. Noticing her self-doubt was resurfacing, Adrien quickly typed out his message. That's amazing, Marinette. I love those designs. You are so talented. I should be at your photo shoot right now instead. I would be honored to wear it. Kiss. Marinette. Thank you. That means a lot, Adrien. A little confession, part of the reason to invite you around here tomorrow is so I could do a fitting, if you don't mind. Kiss. For the rest of the day, they sent little messages back and forth. She would send him little updates whilst he took behind-the-scenes pictures of the shoot, much to her delight, ending with him inviting her to his next one. They had never messaged each other like this before. It had always been a few lines regarding meeting up with Alia and Nino. But today, to receive these brief moments with his princess, laughing, smiling at her comments, hoping she was doing the same with his, brought a spring to his step which everyone commented on. After dinner, his only companion was his phone. Hoping for another message from Marinette, Adrien waited for the moon to shine brightly in the sky before transforming into Cat.
Kid, why are you going over tonight? Confusing the matters more when you two have been gushing over each other all day in those messages, and you'll see her tomorrow?
Plague said, whilst holding a piece of camembert outstretched in his arm, and in the same mocking manner.
You don't want to end in tragedy like the original Lovebirds, do you? Okay, that's a tad dramatic, and no, it will not, especially since you won't be involved in this ending.
Which resulted in a cackling laugh from Plague.
I mean, today was amazing. We have chatted and messaged each other unlike before, but it's not the same, not like how she was with Cat. To be or not to be a cat?
Plague teased again with another piece of cheese.
Plague, cut it out. Enough. Claws out.
It would be fine. Cat would simply go there and check on how she was doing, hope to squash any nerves about tomorrow, then leave. What could go wrong with that plan? Cat jumped across the rooftops, unwilling to remove the smile from his face and excited to see his princess. He was expected to see her through the skylight, bent over her sewing machine or staring at a mannequin. He hadn't expected to see her standing on her balcony, studying the book in her hand.
Evening, princess.
Cat landed on the railing, causing Marinette to let out a gasp in shock, followed by a laughter in relief.
Cat, we have talked about you sneaking up like that, she said through a giggle. What, should I proclaim my approach? How many roofbacks would you like me to shout from?
He wriggled his eyebrows at her rolling eyes, but the smile never left her lips.
Ha ha, kitty. You know what I mean. But what brings you back here again tonight?
You, princess. He leaned in a little closer and watched her glance up at him through her lashes, and the blush tinged her cheeks. His heart leapt in his chest. I'm honored, Kitty, but honestly. She pulled her gaze away from him and nervously tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Stepping down from the rail, Cat edged closer. I came to see how you were getting on with your play and rehearsal after last night, he said softly, but paused before getting closer, resisting the urge to place his hand on her shoulder. Oh, it's not really. I mean, it was postponed until tomorrow, so I have only been... She gestured to the book in her hand. If you would like, princess, I could run lines with you, help you out before tomorrow. What? Like last night? You still want to be my Romeo, Kitty? Why not? Can you think of anyone else better to play your Romeo? Cat said, knowing he was playing with fire, especially after the connection he had had with Marinette today as Adrien. Well, she muttered, flicking through her book and the rosy blush deepening in her cheeks. Oh, really? This Romeo has a rival for his Marinette? Making it clear he wasn't talking about Juliet. Cat, you mock me, dear sir. He could tell she was trying to keep her voice light, but her shoulders slumped as she glanced down across the city. Of course not, Marinette, he whispered, finally landing a hand on her shoulder. Tell me, what's wrong? It's nothing. I'm just being silly, that is all. Nervous. Just the thought of it. The thought of what? He stepped closer. Of your rival? That he would... Never mind, but oh... What is it, Marinette? You know you can tell me anything, as cats are good listeners. I know you are, Kitty. You're a great friend. At the sound of the word caused his heart to drop like a lift without brakes, plummeting down to the hidden depths below. Yeah, friends. And as such, you can tell me what has my princess so tangled up. Is it the words or the performance or... Her face suddenly turned round as she blurted out, Kiss? What? A kiss? What kiss? He jumped back a little at this new revelation. She shrugged her shoulders and turned away from him again. I know, but it was something Alia said, and now I can't get it out of my head. What if he is expecting it? I mean, tomorrow, or what if he doesn't? I mean, want to? He could feel the blush forming across his face, grateful for the darkness of the night as flashes of dreams resurfaced in his mind. Oh, the idea that he could kiss Marinette tomorrow? But did she even want to? But does he want to? It being their first kiss, as he wouldn't want her to feel like she didn't need to, anything she didn't want to. If you don't feel comfortable about it, then I'm sure... Flustered, he struggled to construct his words into a sentence. I know, he wouldn't. It's not that. She slowly turned round and looked at him, giving him a soft smile. Princess? He leaned in and chuckled. She covered her hands over her face and let out a moan. Oh, what if I'm no good? What if I make a fool of myself?
That's not possible, Princess. He would have to be a fool to not want to, he said in earnest, whilst gently resting his hand on her arms, watching her peer through the gaps of her fingers.
Kitty, how can you say it with such... He was no longer thinking with his head, but with his heart. Slowly, he moved one of her hands from her face.
Marinette,
he breathed. Both hands went down from her face and were now clinging onto his bell as she leaned in closer.
Oh, what was happening? Was she about to?
Kitty, she breathed onto his lips, pausing.
Could he? Should he?
He hadn't realized it was happening until his lips were softly brushing against hers. Oh, his heart was pounding in his chest as his soul did somersaults. Was this really happening? Did this mean...
What did it? His hand ran up her shoulder, felt a shiver as it continued from her neck into her hair. He dared to kiss her that bit more passionately and was surprised when she returned the kiss. Oh, he could have lasted in the moment forever, kissing his princess, his Marinette, but they both pulled back, blushing and breathless. Oh, Marinette.
Kitty, she whispered as her fingers brushed over her lips. We just...
Yeah, we did.
He automatically rubbed the back of his neck as an awkward silence hung between them, unsure of what he should say.
Did she regret kissing him? Who kissed who first, anyhow? But she had kissed him back, right? But was it a mistake? It was, after all, his first proper kiss. But surely it wasn't hers, was it? I mean, she dated Luca for a while. They must have...
He watched her blush into the collar of her favorite jacket, hiding part of her face.
Unless... He should say something. Anything. Marinette,
It's fine, Cat. I should... He watched her amble back to the skylight. Her voice held a tone of what? Disappointment? As she picked up her book. Get back inside. I will see...
Why couldn't he move? Say something. Stop her from getting the wrong idea. Why was he suddenly acting more like Adrien than the confident tomcat? Wait, Marinette, please? Oh, what had he done? He had to make a choice. Does he tell her his feelings as Cat, or does he choose Adrien? But which one would she pick, if any, or had all of this been a mistake?
It's fine, Cat. The sound of her voice made him believe it was anything but fine.
But what should he do? Oh, the look on her face made his heart ache. No, Marinette! He lunged forward, grabbed hold of her sleeve. Princess, it's not fine. It's anything but fine. My feelings for you are so much deeper than fine.
She paused, glancing down at his hand on her sleeve and then up towards his face, rolling her lips between her teeth in a nervous manner. What are you saying, Kitty? I know we jest back and forth, but now is not the time.
Princess.
He edged closer, his hand moving up her arm.
Marinette, I'm not jesting. I would never.
His hand reached her cheek, cupping it with his gloved hand, wishing it was his bare hand, whilst his other hand found the indent of her waist. "I love you. I have done for a while, and I would really like to kiss you again." He leaned in and waited to see if she made an excuse to refuse, back out of his hold, but she did and said nothing. He closed his eyes and tasted the sweetness of her lips. Again, his heart now hammering, no, thundering against the shooting bolts of lightning erupting across his body as she leaned in against him, pulling him in tighter as she kissed him back. The beat suddenly turned into a salsa dance inside his chest. Was it possible then? She liked him back? Oh, then it melted altogether as her fingers reached into his hair and around his cat ears, finding himself purring. His eyes darted open in surprise and caught hers, sparkling back at him. Slowly they broke apart, unsteady on his feet. "Did you honestly mean what you said? You really feel that way about me, Kitty?" She did that gesture with her lip again, but now unable to hold his eyes. "Yes, I do, but I understand if you don't. I mean, feel the same way." He shrugged, waiting for the other shoe to drop. He couldn't be this lucky, could he? "Well, Kitty, I do really like you. No, I mean, it's just all a bit sudden." He saw the panic form across her face. "It's fine, Princess. Take your time. I understand. I'm not going anywhere. Either you choose me or not. I will always be here for you." He forced out a smile, not sure if he meant it. "Thank you, Kitty. I just take the time. And speaking of which, it's getting late, and I need to go and allow you some sleep before your rehearsal tomorrow. I will pop by again soon." Unsure of how to gesture his goodbye, he was about to turn and take out his baton when he felt a flutter against his cheek. Marinette leaned back again, but he saw the storm that was now brewing out into the ocean of her eyes. "You had better, my Romeo. Night." "Sweet dreams, my princess, my Marinette." He turned his back on her and levered across the roofs, feeling a pit of torment forming in his stomach. What had he done? Part 4. Marinette's POV. "Oh, that cat!" Marinette paced across her bedroom, attempting to look through her lines one last time before Adrien arrived. How on earth am I meant to focus? I mean, imagine Adrien as my Romeo after what Cat pulled last night.
"When he said he loved you, or the 2 kisses?"
Tiki teased a little. "Tiki!" Marinette would have thought her little Kwame would have been mad at her last night when she jumped back through the skylight after watching Kitty leap off, but she hadn't. In fact, she had thought it was sweet. How can she think this was a good idea? But oh, that kiss. The first one had been her fault, taken in by the night before, their teasing and the way he had looked at her. She had thought a simple kiss with Cat, it wouldn't mean as much, and then it took the nerves away for when she had to kiss Adrien, but the tingle of the kiss, how he held her close, the way he had kissed her back. But she had tried to convince herself she was fine. It was all fine. But then her silly, adorable Kitty had stopped her, pulled her in, cupped her face and told her he loved her. It was the first time anyone had spoken those 3 words to her, and he meant it. She knew her partner well enough now, could read his face, know when he was being earnest, and knew part of her wanted it too. The part of her that was trying to step back from Adrien had been seeing her kitty differently, but she had thought Ladybug. Yet he said it to Marinette in a way he had never said it to Ladybug, with such tenderness. And oh, that second kiss. It was everything she had dreamed a kiss to be, melting into his arms as he held her tight, her heart beating in a way she couldn't catch her breath. Cat, why did you have to shake my world upside down like that? She had no idea what to say and ended up saying it all wrong. Could she love her kitty? Did she love her kitty?
Marinette, Adrien will be here soon.
Tiki flew in front of her face, grabbing her attention back into the room. Adrien, yes, I had better... She glanced around the room she had prepared this morning, pushing back the furniture against the wall with a little too much force, as she had ranted about last night to Tiki, comparing it to the guy she was about to spend the day with. Adrien, the boy she had been... was? Oh, she didn't know now. 3 years was a long time to wait for someone to return your affection, or even confess to them in the first place. She had thought she had made progress yesterday. How they had chatted through the messages had never happened before. Some of them had been a tiny bit flirty, and was looking forward to today. And then that cat, that handsome, beautiful souled cat, had done what she had always dreamed Adrien would do, resulting in her heart now split in 2.
Marinette, I get you have a lot on your mind now, but you really need to stop zoning out and get ready.
Tiki let out a little chuckle and rubbed her cheek. Tiki, the space is ready. I have snacks ready. What more do I need to do?
Maybe get dressed?
Marinette shot her eyes down at the pajamas she was still wearing. Ginger snaps? She quickly glanced at her clock. She had 20 minutes. Shower or not to shower, that is the question. No, shower. She had the time. She used her new raspberry and shea butter shampoo and wash, and picked out a cute dress she had made a while back, but hadn't dared wear it yet. A simple A-line dress that hugged her a little around the waist and 3/4 sleeves, but it wasn't in her usual colour of pink, white and grey. Instead, it was black. It had reminded her of the time she had been Lady Noir, and even stitched on a little green paw print along the bottom, near the hem of the skirt on one side. But after last night, she couldn't wear this, or could she? Had she picked it out because of her... No, she would need to change, and her hair, hanging loosely over her shoulders. No, a t-shirt, a denim skirt, hair pulled back, yeah. The doorbell rang. Ginger snaps. Her parents were out this morning, having lunch with friends, making their excuses to give her space to rehearse, but it also meant there was no one to answer the door, which meant... oh, ginger snaps. She took a deep breath. Okay, I can do this. It's just a play, a day. It's... Adrien! Hello. His eyes shifted from his bag to her face. Morning, Marinette. She dropped her eyes from his sudden piercing gaze and had stood to one side and to allow him to enter. Come in, please. Yes, thank you. Sorry about yesterday. You look beautiful. He shuffled into the living space, glancing around the room and rubbing his neck. Thank you. Is it one of your new designs? I don't think I've seen it. Yeah. Do you want some tea or coffee before we start? She turned her back on him, grateful for the distraction. Why was he looking at her that way? Studying her?
Coffee would be good. I had a late night. His tone held a hint of nervousness.
Why was he suddenly being like this with her? He was a professional model and actor. Why on earth would he be anxious about performing the play? She reached up on her tippy toes and grabbed 2 cups out of the cupboard. Adrien chuckled.
Can I help?
No, I've got this, she said, stumbling around on her own feet and dropping one of the cups. Adrien lunged forward and caught it before it could hit the ground.
Here!
Wow, impressive reflexes, Adrien. Thank you. Her fingers slipped over his as she took the cup back. Was he blushing? Your fencing moves come in handy.
Yeah, fencing.
He removed his hand from around the cup and took a step back. The strong aroma billowing out of the coffee pot on the stove helped to keep her focus and not start wandering on another person who had cat-like reflexes. How do you take it? Milk and sugar? He nodded. She smiled, focusing back on task and not on Adrien, who was acting strangely behind her. So, the play. I don't know about you, I'm a little nervous. Performing it in front of everyone. Have you been practicing? The image of Kitty on her balcony, speaking out the words of Romeo, flooded her mind.
Yeah, me too. But I know what you mean, he said in a soft voice.
Coffee! She handed it to him. His fingers brushed against hers again and felt a tingle sweep across the top of her skin. Pastries? She squeaked, gesturing to the freshly baked croissants and pain au chocolat. A laughter erupted out of Adrien's chest as he reached for a croissant and couldn't help herself joining in. Oh, this was silly. Why was there suddenly tension between them?
Thanks, Marinette. Can I see the designs you were showing me yesterday?
She knew her cheeks were red as she brushed back the hair falling across her face, glancing a look at him through her lashes, and saw a hint of pink on his. Yeah, sure. Okay, deep breath. Clear your mind of tangled thoughts between Adrien and now Kat. She needed to focus. She gestured for him to follow her up the stairs, maybe once they rehearse, and pretending to be Romeo and Juliet. Oh, ginger snaps. She pushed open the trapdoor and picked up the jacket she was in the middle of making for Adrien off the back of the chair, whilst her dress was pinned to the mannequin. She had come up with the design when watching the more modern Romeo and Juliet yesterday. It was a blend between a biker jacket, but more formal and fitted lines closer to Elizabethan clothing. She had used a jade green fabric closer to the colour of his eyes. She had been lost in the concept between designing and talking to him, but now she was holding it out in front of him. Was it too personal? Gave away too many of her secret feelings. Adrien stepped into her bedroom, a space he had only been a handful of times as Adrien, but been a lot more than Kat. He noticed the furniture had been pushed back against the walls so they had more space to rehearse. She was so thoughtful that way. Then something green flashed into the corner of his eyes, grabbing his attention. It was inspiring. Carefully, he placed down his coffee and pastry, not giving a second thought as he wiped his hands on his trousers without a care and stepped forward to her, with his eyes wide and mouth open.
Those photos didn't do it justice, he muttered after what felt like the longest 2 minutes.
She stood there, holding the jacket in front of her, blushing, and had that anxious look in her eyes. I thought you could wear it with your jeans and a plain white t-shirt. Keep the rest simple, do you really like it? I mean, it's kind of in the style, but I wanted a more modern look with the fitting. He took a step closer, wanting so much to grab it out of her hands and study every aspect of it, to marvel at the fact that she had made it for him.
I love it, Marinette. It's amazing.
He automatically grabbed a tissue from the side where she had always kept a box of them and wiped his hands again, removing the butter.
May I? Can I try it on?
The grin spread from her lips to her eyes. Oh, they sparkled like the stars. If you don't mind some pins, I could do with fitting it a little more. I could only go on rough measurements.
I think I'm used to that, Marinette.
He gave her a small smirk, which only made her laugh with embarrassment. But as soon as he slipped on the jacket, he watched her go into design mode. He stood rigid still. To her, it had become another mannequin, focusing on repinning certain parts. It took every strength he had not to melt under her touch as her hands ran along some of the seams across his back. But the hardest was when she seemed to have forgotten how close she was standing against him. The scent of creamy raspberry filled his senses as her hair brushed against his cheek.
Okay, hold it together, Adrien. You have done countless fittings before. This isn't anything different.
But then memories of last night flashed into him. Of the same scent engulfed him as her lips pressed against his. Oh, it was as if she could read his thoughts. Her eyes caught his as she looked up from aligning the collar. He couldn't help himself, darting a quick glance at her lips and then back at her eyes. He had told her last night he loved her.
No, that had been Kat, not Adrien.
He glanced continued downwards to the floor and she stepped back. She had kissed him back but hadn't returned the feelings. So what if she doesn't like Kat that way? But what if she doesn't like Adrien that way either?
Okay, stay in the room and out of your head.
Adrien, you okay? She was peering into his face, her eyebrows raised slightly in concern.
Yeah, fine. Sorry.
I'm finished. Do you mind if I take it off now? She did that gesture again, stroking the hair behind her ear. If only he could do it for her, an excuse to touch her cheek again, but this time to feel her skin. Mind the pins, don't want you to get stabbed now. She let out a light giggle through her smile and felt his heart glow. Oh, it stopped. It stopped beating. She was cradling his hand in hers whilst tugging carefully at the sleeves to slip it out. She let go and it started beating again. But all too soon it stopped once more as she repeated the same action on the other side. Why couldn't he be bold and tell her how she made him feel? But he had done that as Kat, and he didn't want to overwhelm her. That wouldn't be fair, would it? It's going to be amazing, Marinette. Thanks, Adrien. Now that is done, shall we rehearse? I mean, that is what you came for, not me to poke you with pins. She was looking away from him, focusing on the jacket, but did that gesture which he'd started to fall in love with, hoping it was a sign that maybe she was nervous for another reason. Yeah, do you want to go from the start of the scene? He pulled his own copy of the book out of his bag, not that he really needed it. She laughed, placing the jacket over the shoulders of her own dress on the mannequin, as if his Romeo was giving her Juliet a hug from behind. Then he realized he'd been so in awe of what she had created for him, he had failed to notice her own dress.
Nice one, Aggress. How to look like you have an ego.
He stepped closer to it, admired the flowing, shifting fabric, the simple but effective layer effect of the long skirt compared to the more modern design of the top half, which seemed to be fitted compared to the lower half. But what made it perfect was that it was her usual pink colour, complementing the jade green jacket. Yeah, I think that would be best, don't you? She stepped back, not realizing he was behind her, and stumbled into him. He dropped his book, reaching out for her before she had a chance to fall. Oh, sorry, Adrien, I didn't see. Her face so close to his, fingers gripping into her waist, which wasn't blocked by a big jumper this time. Oh, if only he could be as bold as Kat, her kitty. Another moment had passed. My fault, Marinette. She began to pull herself upright and out of his hold, smoothing down her dress when he noticed for the first time the cat noir paw print at the hem. Maybe she did like Cat after all, wearing this dress after last night. But hadn't the aim been for Marinette to like Adrien and not Cat? To be in a relationship where he could take her out on dates rather than hide in the shadows. I was admiring the dress you made for yourself. You are going to make a stunning Juliet. His words seemed to wash over her as she became lost in thought, wanting so much to repeat his cat line. Then again, who needs a Juliet when you have a Marinette? Oh, why hadn't he listened to Plague and not made this more complicated than it needed to be? Shall we then? He reached down and grabbed his book, making his way to the makeshift stage. Oh, yeah. She followed his lead, but started to make her way up towards her mezzanine bed. I thought this would work as a balcony, for rehearsal, I mean. That's a great idea. He smiled, bringing back more memories of their previous rehearsal. Adrien started, repeating the same lines he had said the other night, watching the blush form on her cheeks and trying his hardest to remove his inner cat from the speech. When it came to Marinette's turn, she kept her sight from him and spoke to the corner of the room, but still he was hypnotized at her speaking the words with such emotions up close. As they continued, the more into the characters they became and lost some of their nerves and added in direction as they went. With love's light wings I do approach these walls, for stony limits cannot hold love out, and what love can do, that dares love attempt. Therefore thy kinsmen are no stop to me. Adrien made his way to the foot of the ladder steps. If they do see thee, they will murder thee. For the first time, she glanced down at him before looking at the text in the book. Alack, there lies more perils in thine eyes than 20 of their swords. Look thou but sweet, and I am proof against thy enmity. I would not for the world they saw thee here. Adrien took a few of the steps closer to her. I have night's cloaks to hide me from their eyes, but thou love me? Let them find me here. My life were better ended by their hate than death prolonged, wanting thy love. He smiled at the blush forming in her cheeks. By whose direction foundest thou this place? By love, that first did prompt me to inquire. He lent me counsel, and I lent him eyes. I am no pilot, yet wert thou as far as the vast shores or wash the further seas, I would adventure for such merchandise. Thou knowest the mask of the night is on my face, else would a maiden blush be painted my cheeks, for thou which thou heardst me speak tonight. Vain, I do dwell on form. Vain deny what I have spoke, but farewell compliment. Thou'st love me. I know thou wilt say aye, and I will take thy word. Yet, if thou swearest, thou may prove false. At lovers' perjuries, they say, Joe laughs. Oh, gentle Romeo, if thou love me, pronounce it faithfully. Or, if thou thinkest I'm too quickly won, I'll frown, and be persuade, and say thee nay, so thou will woo, but else not for the world. In truth, fair Montague, I am too fond, and therefore thou mayest think my haver light. But trust me, gentlemen, I'll prove more true than those who have more coping to be strange. I should have been more strange, I must confess, but thou overheardst I was where my true love passion. Therefore pardon me, and not impute this yielding to light love, which the dark night has so discovered. He had found himself 2/3 of the way up the ladder as she leant closer, pulled towards her, not by Shakespeare's words, but by the tone she had used, held a form of truth. Lady, by yonder blessed moon I vow, that tips with silver all these fruit tree tops. Oh, swear not by the moon, by inconstant moon, that monthly changes encircle orb, lest thy love prove likewise variable. He took another step higher. What shall I swear by? Do not swear at all. Or if thou swear, by gracious self, which is the God of my idolatry, and I'll believe thee. If my heart still love, I love you. Before he knew what was happening, his lips were touching hers, and had taken the last step, now kneeling at her side. The kiss was light at first, until he found his hand in her hair, pulling in tighter as she kissed back. They let go of each other, his head spinning from lack of air. Marinette, Adrien, did you say? Her eyes were wide in disbelief. Yeah, I did, he breathed.
Part 5. Marinette's POV. Oh, Adrien, how much? She closed her eyes and tugged at her bottom lip as flashes of cat came to mind. What were the chances that both of them confessed their affections to her in the space of 24 hours? She let out a deep sigh and pulled back. Why now? Do you really mean it? It can't be true, can it? This was one of those strange dreams, or he was swept along with the play. Adrien edged a little closer to her and enclosed one of her hands between two of his. He stroked his fingers over the back of her hand and let out a blissful sigh. Marinette, I mean it with all my heart. It might have taken Romeo to allow me to finally confess my feelings, which I have wanted to do for a while now. Really? You have really? She scrunched up her face in disbelief, causing Adrien to let out a small chuckle. Yeah, I have been trying to ask you out, but I thought that maybe you only saw me as a friend. Are you kidding me? A friend? That is all you would say to me. So I put my feelings for you away, trying to convince myself that I no longer loved you, and then we winded up doing this play. Wait. You loved me? His hand paused as his eyes searched hers. He edged even closer and hovered his hand out to close to her face, but not yet touching. Marinette, is it love or loved? At the same time, his forehead touched hers as his hand gently stroked her cheek. It felt like she had lost her anchor and was now floating through the sky, unable to grab hold of something to pull her back to earth. How was this possibly happening? Something she had wished for so long, and now she didn't know if she wanted it. She let out a sigh as he pressed his head against hers as if he wanted to read her thoughts. Both? I know that doesn't make sense, but none of this does. I've wanted you to say those words to me for the past 3 years, Adrien. But when I thought you only saw me as a friend, and yet to hear those words now, it's everything I ever wanted. He rolled his face down a little, so that their noses rubbed together and their lips brushed slightly. And that kiss? She breathed into his lips until they found hers once more, breathing for her. There was something familiar with how he held her, ran his fingers through her hair, pulling her in closer. The way he leaned into her touch, running her hand from his cheek, around his neck and into his hair.
She was no longer floating amongst the blue skies, but was now soaring through the stars, until the image of Cat came to mind. Oh, Kitty. The way he had felt last night, how he had purred at the kiss. She paused. Her hand slid down to Adrien's chest, which was vibrating. No. It wasn't possible, was it? She focused on his chest, as the kiss now had turned to quick pecks on the lips, unwilling to break apart. And there it was, as clear to her as the heart pounding in her chest. He was purring. Kitty? She breathed into his lips with such tenderness as she could muster. She wasn't angry or shocked. She had just worked out her partner's identity. Instead, it felt right. It made sense that Adrien was her Kitty. What? No. What did you say? He cupped her face with his hands and stared into her soft gaze and surprise in his eyes. You are my Kitty, aren't you? She couldn't help letting out a giggle. It's you. It's really you. The past couple of nights? Last night you told me as Cat you loved me? Caused my head to swirl as I was falling in love with my Kitty. She stroked her fingers across his blushed cheeks, around his wide eyes to where his mask would be. But that wasn't enough. You told me you loved me as Adrien? She shook her head, but wore the widest of grins at his crimson face. Now, to know that the ones who had stolen my heart, that I love, are the same person. It's everything. Do you mean it? You... Because I love you so much, Marinette, my princess. His grin turned into his playful cat smack, confirming it. I do. I fell in love with you twice. He wrapped his arms around her in a tight embrace, pressing their beating hearts together, and could feel the purr emit out of him once more. He leant into her neck, his breath tickling against her tiny hairs. You have no idea what that means to me, princess. I thought I would be lucky if I could get you to like me. And then after last night, when I couldn't help myself telling you how I felt after... He drew back a little, a Cheshire grin on his lips, and the brightness in his eyes she had never seen before. They practically sparkled. You kissed me first. This is all your fault. She placed a hand over her eyes and felt her cheeks become rosy. Yeah, it is. I was just so nervous at the thought of kissing Adrien, you. But you were tempted by Cat? She rolled her eyes behind her hand at the smirk she could hear in his voice. Yeah, I mean the way you looked at me, said my name, how I was falling for you but didn't realize how much. She felt him pulling her hand slowly away from her face. Thank you. He grinned at her. Yeah. But it's your fault you told me twice, as Adrien, then purring, revealing yourself. About that, Marinette. I know I can trust you, that you won't tell anyone. My identity? Of course, Kitty. It's our secret. I won't tell a soul. You have no idea the relief to finally tell someone, but especially you. It must be hard to keep a secret like that. The burden. Well, now you have someone to share it with. I will help carry some of the weight. You're not alone, Adrien. My Kitty. He let out a sigh and felt his whole body relax against hers.
I'm so glad it's you, Marinette, that knows. Then his body shifted again in a nervous manner. But I might not be Kitty for much longer when I have to tell Ladybug that I let my identity slip.
I don't know. Maybe she will surprise you and be more supportive.
Oh, I didn't mean she's not. Ladybug is amazing. I just know it's a rule of hers you can't break.
I get that, but I was multi-mouse for a while, so I kind of get it. Anyway, she shifted in his arms. This conversation was hitting too close to home, and something she needed to think about when she was alone later.
Yeah, you're right, but let's not think of that now. We have a play to rehearse. Romeo and his Marinette. He grinned and wriggled his eyebrows at her. She could tell he was becoming more comfortable to expose his more cat side in front of her. So, where were we again? He leaned in to kiss her, but she placed her finger across his lips.
You were swearing your love for me. She gave him a wink.
I was indeed.
He wiggled his eyebrows again. She couldn't help rolling her eyes and giving him a slight tap on the chest, pushing him back a little. We need to take this seriously if we're going to perform in front of the class. She couldn't help sounding nervous at the thought of it.
I will be there. We are doing it together, and it means even more now, the thought of performing the play with my girlfriend. He rubbed his hand through the back of his hair. I mean, that is, will you be my girlfriend, Marinette?
She couldn't help but chuckle. We have just told each other we love one another. Of course I'll be your girlfriend, Adrien. Then she caught herself at the words, not quite believing them. Wow, I think it's all finally starting to sink in, she chuckled, raising her hand to her hot cheeks.
You are adorable when you blush like that.
He kissed on top of her hand that was still blocking her cheek. Right, enough, we need to focus. She turned her back on him as he let out a playful sigh, fighting back a wide grin of her own as she tried to focus on the text in front of her. Ready?
Your Romeo is ready.
He pulled a mock straight actor expression. She shook her head, trying hard to stop grinning, and let out a long breath to reduce the giddiness from her voice. Well, do not swear, although I joy in thee. I have no joy of this contract tonight. It is too rash, too unadvised, too sudden, too like the lightning which doth cease to be, ere one can say it lightens. Sweet, good night. This bud of love, by summer's ripening breath, may prove a beauteous flower when next we meet. Good night. Good night. A sweet repose and rest come to thy heart as that within my breast.
Will thy leave me so unsatisfied?
Adrien leaned in a little closer again. What satisfaction can thou have tonight?
Thy exchange of love's faithful vow for mine,
he said with a tenderness which drew her in. I gave thee before thou did request it, and yet I would it were given again.
Wouldst thou withdraw it? For what purpose, love?
But to be frank, and give it thee again, and yet I wish but for the thing I have. My bounty is as boundless as the sea, my love as deep. The more I give to thee, the more I have, for both are infinite. I hear some noise within. Dear love, adieu. Anon, good nurse. Sweet Montague, be true. Stay but a little. I will come again. She pushed him back as Adrien tried to kiss her, and then pulled a playful rejection expression.
Oh, blessed, blessed night! I am afeard, being in night, all this is but a dream. too flattering, sweet to be substantial.
3 words, dear Romeo, and good night indeed. If that thy bent on love be honourable, thy proposed marriage, send me word tomorrow, by one that will be cured to come to thee, where and what time thou wilt perform the rite, and all my fortunes at thy foot I lay, and follow thee, my lord, throughout the world. I come anon, but if thou meanest not well, I do beseech thee.
Marinette?
A voice called up from the other side of the trapdoor. By and by I come, to cease my strife, and leave me to my grief. Tomorrow I will send.
So thrive my soul. Adrien leaned in closer, breathing the words onto her lips.
1,000 times good night. She closed the gap and kissed him with a smile, and a light chuckle emitted out of her. Marinette, we're back, Sabrine called as the trapdoor was creaking open. Adrien jumped backwards, crimson on his cheeks as he dashed down a few of the steps, whilst Marinette couldn't help but burst into laughter.
Part 6. Marinette's POV. Maman, Marinette said through a giggle, did you have a good time? Yes, dear. I thought you were shouting for us. Is everything okay? Sabrine looked from Marinette and lingered on a bashful Adrien. No, we were rehearsing. I'm doing the part where Juliet shouts to her nurse. Anon? Oh, I see. Well, we have brought some food back for lunch if you care to join us, and it is lovely to see you again, Adrien.
Hello, Miss Dupin-Chang, and thank you.
Yes, Maman, we'll join you in 5 minutes. Very good. Sabrine smiled at the pair and lowered the trapdoor as she made her way back into the kitchen. Marinette burst out laughing as Adrien dropped down the last few steps, covering his face with his hands. Are you all right there? Marinette peered over the side of the rail with happy tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, but the look on your face?
What must your parents think?
His hands shifted from his face to the back of his neck as he paced on the spot. Marinette, reading Adrien's worried gestures, scrambled down the ladder, stood before him and placed her hands on his shoulders. Adrien, these are my parents. There is nothing to worry about. You need to realize how highly they think of you.
But they...
Marinette ran one of her hands to his cheek as his eyes finally landed on hers. Trust me. They know how much you have done for me as my friend. You have always been there for me. Adrien leant his forehead against hers.
What I have done for you is nothing to what you have provided.
He wrapped his arms around her waist and pulled her in tighter. Adrien, you need to stop putting this pressure on yourself and give yourself more credit. And that you are highly thought of. I am in love with you. She allowed the words to settle in, watching a smile filter across his lips, and felt his shoulders drop.
Do you know how much that means to me to hear these words from your lips? I never thought I could be this lucky. To have someone like you to love both sides of me?
He breathed out. I think there's still parts of me that can't believe that you of all people, are my kitty.
I think it was through being your kitty allowed me to see a different side of my Marinette. You were so much more open with him than with Adrien.
That's because I was a stuttering mess with Adrien. I fell in love with you when you gave me your umbrella, and then from there, I tried telling you my feels and asking you out.
Wait, when you said the past 3 years, you meant from my second day. The umbrella? You have since then, and I didn't. I wish I had, no wonder.
She brushed her hand through the air before landing back on his cheek. But none of that matters now, because we have found each other, and I'm happy, Adrien. You make me happy. She felt his hand reach up and cup her face,
He stroked a tear away from her cheek with his thumb before kissing the same spot. Slowly his lips skipped down to hers. The soft, tender touch made her head swirl. It wasn't the passionate kiss as before, but more of a kiss where they were comfortable with each other, like they had done it many times before, with the promise of more to come. I think we should make our way downstairs before my mom comes looking for us once again. Are you good? She searched his emerald eyes and found them sparkling back at her. His hand stroked down her arm, causing a shiver to ripple through her body until it reached hers. I'm more than good. I'm more than happy. And I think you're right, we should better. He gestured his head to the trapdoor. Marinette lifted the hatch and the warm, inviting smell wafted towards them. Knowing he was nervous, she gave his hand a quick squeeze before leading him down the stairs. My mom greeted them at the bottom of the stairs with a warm smile. I hope you like pot roast, Adrien. Mrs. Lee seemed to think everyone has the appetite of a teenager and made more than we could eat. We figured you would both be ready for lunch break when we got home anyway. Sounds delicious, Mrs. Dupin Chang, he replied politely, and while his anxiety didn't show on his face, he squeezed her hand a little tighter. It's Sabine and Tom, dear, she replied, glancing down at the joined hand. A tiny smirk tugged at the corner of a smile that Marinette knew all too well, which meant her mother was dying to say something, but wouldn't. If you forget it again, I'll break your plate. Marinette, would you mind filling the water glasses? No problem, Mum, she replied. She gave Adrien's hand one last squeeze, trying not to laugh as his eyes blew wide. Break my plate? He whispered as she handed him several glasses from the cupboard. Nothing to worry about. It's kind of a family joke. When I was little and getting into things I shouldn't, my mum and papa would threaten to break my plate if I didn't shape up. She couldn't help but giggle over the time her mother had found her 6-year-old self on top of the refrigerator in search of hidden cookies. They never meant it, and she doesn't now. He chuckled weakly as she poured the water into the glasses and helped her carry them to the table. It took some relaxed conversation, Mrs. Lee's excellent pot roast, and a few puns from Tom to put his mind at ease. But Adrien finally seemed to enjoy himself. Marinette just watched him fondly as he slowly sank into her family's dynamics like a weary man sinking into a hot tub at the end of a long day. It tugged at her heart that Adrien, her kitty, who was so brave in facing Shadow Moth and everything he could throw at them, was afraid of rejection. It explained why he'd been so nervous about her fake confession. He hadn't wanted to hurt her, knowing how it felt. Oh boy, she thought nervously. That is going to be a mess to explain when the time comes. When, not if, when. As awkward as she felt over the idea of him learning her identity and all the problems that came with it, she was sure that she would tell him. But not today. She could give herself time to adjust, time to soak in the warmth of his love. She could give herself that much. After washing the dishes together, they went back upstairs, followed by her mom's knowing eyes. As she closed the trapdoor behind them, she felt his arms creep around her waist. Thank you, he murmured into her hair. For what? For wanting me, loving me, on both sides of the mask. He kissed the side of her neck, sending warm shivers coursing through her. You have no idea what that means to me, Marinette. She turned in his arms and ran her hands to his shoulders before slipping her hands behind his neck. I think I do. I could see it, you know. The loneliness, the rejection, the worry. I just didn't know what to do about it, and I could barely talk to you anyway, so... He chuckled and brushed his nose against hers. Oh, was it possible to fall in love with a sound? 'Cause that soft chuckle was addictive. You're talking to me now, he pointed out, his smile turning smug as he watched her blush. Anything you want to say now that you aren't so nervous? She looked up into his beautiful eyes that smiled down at her with all the life and happiness of the first day of spring. "Call me but love," she murmured softly. She watched him focus on her lips before his arms tightened around her and kissed her, soft and sweet, but she could feel the passion he held in check. His chest vibrated in a purr that was softer than when he was transformed, but it thrilled her in a way she didn't want to identify. "My love," he sighed against her lips. "We should get back to rehearsal, shouldn't we?" "I was thinking, since we've had more rehearsing than I thought." He wriggled his eyebrows at her, and she swatted at his arm playfully, making him laugh. "I thought we might curl up and watch a movie. We can use the break." He hummed in delight, adding a different layer to the purring. "As long as we watch something where the prince gets to keep his princess once he finds her." He rubbed his jaw against her hand in a cat-like gesture. "I'm not in the mood for tragedy when I'm this happy." So they made a pile of pillows and blankets on the floor and watched The Black Shield of Falworth. Adrien was thrilled with the sword-fighting scenes, poking at the screen with happy jabbing motions, and Marinette curled close to him when Miles and Francis climbed the wall to visit the Lady Anne and Miles' sister, Meg. But when Walter Blunt kept fighting Miles and pressuring Anne to marry him, Marinette buried her face into his shoulder. "What's wrong, Marinette?" he asked, worry darkening his eyes as he paused the movie. "Are you okay?" "Adrien, I'm so glad you're my Romeo, but..." "But what, love?" "I don't know how I'm going to get through performing this in front of the class," she groaned. "Are you still worried? We can rehearse some more if it helps to feel more confident," he said, rubbing her shoulders smoothly. "It's not that. Especially now that I don't have to worry about, well..." She blushed and looked down. He lifted her chin with his fingers and placed a soft kiss on her lips. "You don't have to worry about the kiss being real, you know." "But that's just it, Adrien. Whether or not it's real for us, everyone in class will see it. Alia teasing me would be bad enough, but Chloe and Lila? I just don't want to think about what they are going to do." "You don't have to worry so much, Marinette. They are nothing but foul words. Foul words but are foul winds, and foul winds is but foul breath, and foul breath is nonsense." She giggled. "That's not Romeo and Juliet." He grinned. "Still Shakespeare, though. The point is, words can hurt, yes, but that's all they have. Just words and nothing. Chloe or Lila or anyone else can change how I feel about you, princess." He kissed her temple. "Besides, Lila's been lying, saying I've been dating her for years. I think it's past time to show her what it takes to steal my heart." But she had settled back against his shoulder and tried to let his words calm her. But the next day, all the confidence and assurance she had gained from Adrien's confessing his love for her shattered when she was pushed against the wall of the girls' room during the break between her two classes. "What do you think you were doing over my Adrians this morning, married trash?" Chloe demanded, leaning into her face and smiling a serpent's grin. Marinette gasped at the blow, feeling anger swell in her chest. "What's it to you, Chloe?" "What it is, Dupang Chang, is that you are so far beneath Adrien that you aren't even good enough to lick his shoes." "That's not true," she growled, fighting to restrain herself. "Adrien cares about me, Chloe. There's nothing you can do to change that. Besides, Miss Bustier was the one who paired us for the Shakespeare assignment. If you have a problem, take it up with her." "Ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous," she exclaimed. "You know, maybe this will teach you a lesson after all." She examined her nails critically, as if wondering if touching her had damaged her polished finish. "You have no idea what you've stepped into, Dupang Chang. The world Adricans and I were born into. Well, You can never hope to measure up. Adrien is famous, rich, and handsome. What would he ever see in a pitiful little nothing like you? Tears were falling down Marinette's face now. She stood her ground. There are only words, she thought, desperately trying to deny the fear that Chloe was right. They can't hurt me. They're only words. 2 houses that shall never be joined, said the soft, hateful voice that could only belong to Lila. She stood by the door, blocking the way so no one could enter the bathroom. If you keep playing this game with Adrien, then it can only lead to heartbreak and tragedy, just like the play. How selfish can you get, Mary Trash? Chloe sneered. Do you really think Gabriel Agreste would think a lowly baker girl worthy of his perfect son? Why, you're not even worthy to breathe the same air as people like us. That's not true, she repeated, fists clenched and eyes streaming. He loves me. He said, give it up, Marinette, Lila said, practically purring. Adrien is just feeling sorry for you. After all, what do you really have to offer someone like him? We've all known about your little crush on him for years, but he's so kind. He's just humoring you to get through the assignment. There is nothing special about you to hold his attention, so just give up, Marinette. She sobbed. Then Chloe and Lila pushed her into the cubicle and braced the door with something so she couldn't get out. They laughed cruelly as they left the bathroom, leaving her trapped with her misery. She sat there on the floor, crying until her eyes burned, her throat was sore, and her chest ached from sobbing. Marinette, Tiki finally called softly. She hadn't even felt her little Kwame trying to soothe her all this time. You need to pull yourself together. You might attract a Kuma? But the right, Tiki, she wailed. What do I have to offer Adrien that he doesn't already have, or can have better with someone else? I'm nothing. They're just jealous of you, Marinette. They always have been. Chloe because your drive, talent, and ambition, and Lila because everyone seems to like you and want to be your friend just because you're you. And Adrien loves you for the same reason. Don't forget, Adrien is Cat Noir. He let go of Ladybug and fell in love with your civilian self. That's just how special you really are. But Marinette was too raw, too heartsick to listen to her friend. Suddenly the toilet cubicle felt too small, as if she couldn't breathe. She pounded on the door, but it wouldn't open. I need to get out! Get out! She gasped out. Tiki flew through the door. A second later, there was a loud clatter and she phased back through. They had blocked it with a chair. It will... But before she could finish, Marinette was out the bathroom and running for the doors as if her life was depending on it. She ran through the crowd of students in the courtyard, brushing past them with little regard for anything except an intense desire to get home. She blew down the stairs, only barely taking in that Adrien was standing in front of the silver car his father always sent for him. Marinette! What happened? What's wrong? He reached out a hand to her, but she kept running. Marinette! She could hear his feet pounding behind her, but she couldn't face him, not with those hateful words strangling her heart like a noose. She burst through the doors of the bakery, ignoring her parents' startled look, and ran up the stairs to her apartment. Marinette, sweetheart, what is it? Her mum asked, having followed her up the stairs. She could hear Adrien talking loudly with her father below, demanding to see his princess. She closed the door and leaned against it, trembling, sick at heart. Marinette, open up! I know something happened at school. Please, let me in. Let me help. No, Adrien, she cried in anguish. Just go. We've been foolish, lying to ourselves. There is no lie, Marinette. You hold my whole heart, so you know there can't be any room for lies. I can't do this. She pushed her face and her hand hard against the door, willing him to leave, begging him to stay. I can't perform with you, and oh, how it hurt her heart. I can't do this. The divide it's just too great.
Princess, please,
she heard from behind the door. Please, just go. There was a long silence, and Marinette, exhausted, burdened and heartbroken, turned her back to the door and her kitty, her Romeo, on the other side. She slid down the wood to the floor. "Oh, my poor dear," her mother whispered, kneeling on the floor, wrapping her loving arms around her.
Part 7. Adrien's POV. Today had been a strange day. To be honest, it was one he had feared. It started well, amazing really, waking with the knowledge of seeing his girlfriend. Wow, it hadn't really sunk in yet. The girl, Marinette, the one he loves him back. A giddy laugh sprang forth at the mere thought of it. Oh, he was happy. She said he made her happy. They had spent the afternoon curled up in each other's arms, not really invested in the film in front of them, but rather catching up on the small details they had missed, laughing at the misread signs and the almost chances of confessing their feelings to one another. He could tell his princess still held a sense of nervousness about stepping out of their bubble and going public, wary of the comments and opinions from people that didn't really matter. But to place Marinette at ease with the shifting situation, they had agreed yesterday afternoon to take it slow at school, to get used to the idea of being a couple and working out how they were going to break the news to the friends and the rest of the class. But saying that, he found it hard not to wrap his arms around Marinette, who was early for once standing on the front steps, holding a box of treats in her hands and a shy smile spread across her lips. His heart racing at the thought of kissing those lips. So how had the day turned so badly when the morning had been filled with possibility, flirtation, love? To his heart pounding in his chest as he raced after a weeping Marinette through the streets of Paris. They hadn't been able to spend lunch together. Natalie had ordered him home to eat a small plate of regimented food, which had left any taste back in the kitchen, and alone, instead of laughing at Nino's jokes, giving feedback to Alia on her latest blog, and most importantly, sneaking Marinette away so they could be alone. Or better yet, tell their closest friends they were finally dating. It didn't help that this afternoon classes differed from Marinette's, with him having to take advanced maths. They had agreed to meet in the locker room before his car needed to pick him up, but she wasn't there. He darted to her last class, but again, no sign of her. It wasn't like her to leave. No, she wanted to be held in his arms as much as he wanted it. He tried ringing her, but there was no answer. His heart skipped a beat at the sound of a message coming through, only to instantly sigh when he had seen it was the third one from his bodyguard, with an emoji of an angry face this time. He had to go, and he would explain to her how they had simply missed each other later over the phone. What he hadn't expected to hear was Marinette's muffled cry, her hands clenched across her mouth as she raced past him towards her home. "Marinette! What happened? What's wrong?" He reached out a hand to her, but she kept running. "Marinette!" There was no choice to make. He instantly took chase after her, but she was fast, faster than he thought she was. What on earth, or who on earth, caused his princess this much pain? All he wanted to do was wrap her up in his arms and take the burden for himself. She had reached the blue side doors before he could catch her, slamming it shut, ignoring him as he called out again. Why was she shutting him out? Was it something he had done? Adrien turned on his heels, braced himself and dashed through the shop door. Thankfully there were no customers.
I need to see Marinette, Adrien blurted out to Tom, who was standing in front of him with his arms crossed and held an angry, puzzled expression. What's wrong with my daughter? Tom leaned in a little closer, and Adrien realized he had stopped breathing. He felt Plagg shift in his top bucket, making his presence known. This was urgent. If Marinette became akumatized? Oh, he didn't know what he would do. Be able to fight her? No, he needed to remain strong, let out his more hero side. Adrien released the breath he had been holding on to. Sir, Mr. Dupin, I don't know, but I need to see her, to let her know I'm here for her. Tom narrowed his eyes at Adrien, the same look he'd given to Kat a year ago when he came for dinner. I have to do something. What if an Akuma? That was all he needed to say. Tom took a step to the side and allowed him to pass. Vivid images of where Dad flinging Kat around like he was a rag doll, and how he struggled to fight back, filled his mind, guessing it would be so much worse for Adrien. He darted up the steps, taking 2 at a time. Marinette! Open up! I know something happened at school. Please, let me in. Let me help. He banged his hand on the door. No, Adrien, she cried in anguish, her words taking him by surprise. Just go! We have been foolish, lying to ourselves. What was she saying? What had happened to make her believe that? There is no lie, Marinette. You hold my whole heart, so you know there can't be any room for lies. He leaned his forehead against the door. If only he could hold her, wipe away the tears and whisper words of comfort into her ear, confirming how much he adored, loved her to the point he was no longer able to contain it. I can't do this. The pain in her words seeped through the door and shot him in the heart. He pushed his hands hard against the door, willing her to allow him to stay. I can't perform with you. I can't do this. Us? The divide, it's too great. He could hear how broken she was at saying these words. They didn't sound right coming from her, especially after yesterday. No, she was the one who was lying, speaking words that weren't her own. Princess, please, he pleaded, feeling his own tears dripping from his jaw and onto his t-shirt. Please, just go. Oh, the pain in her voice was unbearable. How could he leave her like this? Then he heard Sabine on the other side of the door, speaking words of comfort, knowing she was now nestled in her mother's arms instead of his own. He rolled his forehead off the door, leaving a kiss behind, hoping it would find its way to his princess. His feet felt heavy as they trudged down the steps and through the side door. He tried to track through his now foggy thoughts to how this could have happened. Who would have planted the seed of doubt inside her heart, hoping the roots could tear them apart? And yet, no one else knew they were a couple yet, unless Marinette had confided in Alia. No, their 2 best friends would be happy for them. That he knew for a fact. So who? He hadn't been aware of the travel back home until his bodyguard opened the door for him. He wasn't aware of Natalie spewing out orders and tasks to be completed, only his head nodding in auto playback. He calmly shut the door and aimed for his bed, landing face down. It couldn't be over between them. He wouldn't believe it, hoping his agonizing pain in his heart was temporary. Kid, you okay? Plagg said in a surprising soft voice, feeling a tiny tap on his head. No, Plagg, I'm not. How could you say those words? To push me away like that? Adrien's muffled voice seeped into the covers along with his tears. I don't think she meant them, kid. She sounded scared. Adrien could make out the sound of Plag munching down on a piece of cheese.
What I've seen of Marinette, she can be bold and fearless when she needs to be, but underneath that she is constantly worrying, putting herself down, thinking less of herself.
Adrien instantly sprung up.
But she's none of that. She's amazing, thoughtful, caring, the biggest heart I've ever known. Don't tell me that. Tell her.
Plag shoved another chunk of cheese into his mouth.
But she doesn't want to see me. She won't open the door to me. Then go through the window. She knows you're Cat Noir, so take advantage of it. Yeah, she does.
Adrien pushed himself up to a seating position.
But wouldn't that be wrong? Intruding? What if she refuses to speak to me? Then at least you've tried. But she needs you, kid. Since when did you get so wise and willing to help in the matters of the heart?
Adrien raised his eyebrows at him.
Don't get used to it, kid. This is a one-off. I like Marinette. She's good for you.
Aw, buddy. Thanks. Adrien tried to give Plag a little scratch behind his ear, but he darted out of reach.
Yeah. So, are you going to say the word or not?
For a split second, Adrien could swear he saw a little smirk across his buddy's face.
Plag, claws out.
Cat Noir jumped out of his bedroom window and headed straight to his princess. Cat landed on Marinette's balcony gently, as not to startle her, unaware of the figure wrapped in a blanket as Marinette sat on her sunchair. Cat! Her voice was low and broken, but it was enough to startle him and cause him to leap into the air, landing awkwardly in a power stance. And yet, the tiny chuckle that emitted out of his princess was healing music to his heart. Marinette, my love, please, don't call me that. The same fragmented voice filtered out from the curled up ball in front of him. Ignoring the pain the words had caused, he took a step closer to her. Why not? You are my love. You are. Why are you here, Cat? She cut him off. Because you're in pain, and I want to be here for you. To find out what had changed so much since this morning, since yesterday. I love you, and I know you love me, so I need you to tell me what went wrong. Was it something I did? He stepped closer to the ball of fabric as it shuddered slightly with a barely audible sobbing sound emitting out of it. Princess, please, let me be here for you. He perched on the bottom edge of the chair and stroked the fabric that surrounded her head. Cat, it's nothing. Adrien has done. It's just... I stepped out of the bubble and back into reality, into the situation, realizing we might have more in common with Romeo and Juliet than I thought. She muffled the last part, but he could still make it out. I'm sorry, but I still don't understand. The only reality is that I love you and you love me, and I want to be with you more than anything else in the world. He gently pushed back the fabric to reveal more of her face, and saw her red, swollen eyes staring back. A crushing pain attacked his heart, and in a single move, he wrapped his arms around his princess. He had expected her to fight him off after the words of rejection, but she did the opposite. She slid her arms around his waist and nestled her head into the nook between neck and chest. I love you. I do. It's just... She let out a sigh. Her breath tickled against his exposed skin above the neckline of the suit. Tell me what happened today. There has always been a part of me that worried what would happen if we ever started dating. Torn between wanting to be with you and the disappointment. No, the sheer heartbreak of letting you go. He wanted to jump in and protest against her words, but knew it would be best to allow her to free fall down this burrow of thoughts. Instead, he pulled her in tight into his embrace, resting his head on top of hers. We haven't even told anyone we are dating, and I already got a glimpse of it. We are both from 2 different worlds, and I know you're not the biggest fan of yours, and yet you can't escape it, and not the expectations your father has for you, knowing one of them isn't dating a bakery girl. He paused, seeing if she was going to continue before stepping in. It's true. My father has got a lot of expectations for me, including who I am to date. But that is my father. I get to choose who I love, who is in my heart, and I will challenge and battle anyone who comes in the way of that. Who planted these seeds of doubt in you today? He had his suspicions, but needed to confirm it in her own words. She ran her fingers over the leather and wished he could feel the touch better against his skin. Claws in, he breathed. The sudden chill of the night air hit him, grabbing at the blanket and wrapped it around both of them. Your heartbeat is clearer without the suit on. Her fingers continued to run against his t-shirt now, the transformation not halting her movement for a single second, but he enjoyed the soothing sensation it now brought. It started at lunchtime, once you left, and I was sitting with Alia and Nino in the canteen. They were small comments at first. I don't know how much you know about what my life was like at the school before you and Alia had turned up. Adrien shook his head. He had no idea, but he had heard rumours, of course, and presumed it was pretty much as it was now. If you can believe it, I was a bigger fumbling mess than I am now. I didn't have a close friend and kind of kept mostly to myself. In fact, the opposite to what I have now. Except one thing, which hasn't changed. And before I say anything, I know Chloe has been your oldest friend, but she had confirmed at least one name, and felt a surge of anger at what that bitter girl could have possibly done or said to his Marinette. Yes, I have known Chloe since childhood, and I also know that she can be like how she has treated you. I would never have believed it if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes. How she bullies you, but also how you raise yourself up when she tries to knock you down. I try to, but it's hard. Her words are like weeds, hard to root out, especially when she... Her voice filtered off, cracking at the edges, and for once he saw a slither of the pain Marinette had been holding in for years. How long has she been bullied? And was this why she held this false image of herself, of being unworthy? Although it was different, he knew what it was like to have someone who constantly belittled you, scrutinized your every move, and makes you feel less than anyone else around you. A damp patch was now forming on his shirt, soaking into his skin as she tugged at the cotton between her fingers. He curled his arms tighter around her, softly stroking one hand up and down her back. If you feel you are able to, I want to know what she did to you today. He breathed into her ear. Her breath was short, catching in her throat as she described what had happened to her in the girls' toilets, with Lila included. Rage coursed through every part of him as she spoke of being thrown into the cubicle, trapped inside. Feeling his own body tighten as he attempted to control his emotions. How dare anyone do this to his princess, to Marinette, but even more so that his so-called friend did it in his name, using the excuse that she was better than Marinette, using hateful words, physically attacking her. Marinette, who was liked, love and kindness, who was the best person he knew.
That Chloe and Lila had the nerve to even suggest they were her better? Had she been subjected to this cruelty for years? Well, now it was going to stop. A growl surged from the hidden depths of his soul and erupted out of his chest. It was a mixture of his own and that of Plagg, who he could sense was combusting with his own anger. How dare they do that to you? No wonder you acted that way, but believe me when I say, none of what they said was true. They are the ones beneath you, and they have no say on me or our relationship. He stroked his hand down her face, along her jaw, and encouraged her to look up at him. The pain blended with fear caused a storm in her ocean eyes, breaking his heart. I love you, and I will defy anyone who thinks they shall come between us, my love.
Adrien, I was so scared to tell you.
But why? You know you can tell me anything, that I'm here for you. Please, don't push me away like that again.
I was scared you would think less of me. For years I've had to hear her hateful words, pretending they don't matter when really they have taken root in me, and I can't seem to dig them out. So when she said that about us...
Your default is to believe it even when you know it to be lies? Yeah, I get that.
She gave him a knowing look that he was referring to his father, but this wasn't about that for now.
But she is going to stop. I will speak to her and make sure she does.
Adrien, you can't. What if it makes it worse? My parents tried speaking to the principal, and all she had to do was get Daddykins on the phone, and no one cared what we had to say.
She can't get away with this, my princess. To make you feel like that when you are the most wonderful person I know? I'm sorry, but I will have to say something, and if she wants her daddy on the phone, then I will deal with that too.
How? And what about your own father? Surely he won't be happy with you getting involved, threatened to take you out of school? I won't let you, not for me. She cast her gaze downwards.
There you are, believing those hateful words again? Believing you aren't worthy of the attention, of the sacrifice? I meant what I said, Marinette, my love. I will defy anyone who shall come between us, including my father. I will fight for you, for us. Will you?
His fingers brushed down her face, smearing in the tears, feeling some of his own dripping onto her cheek, blending together. Her gaze drifted up and locked onto his. The storm had settled to deep waves soaring with love and crashing down with a new determination. Yes, yes, we will fight this together. I love you. She breathed onto his lips before kissing him with a passion that confirmed they were in this as one. For the rest of the night, they held each other in their arms, cementing their love until his princess started to fall asleep. He carefully carried her back through the skylight, keeping the blanket wrapped round her, and kissed her goodnight on her forehead, making a silent promise to his love that she won't be alone in this anymore, that she will always have him to love, support, and fight for her. He climbed back out, closing the skylight behind him.
Plagg, you good there, buddy? I felt you buzzing in my pocket for a while back when Marinette was telling us. Yeah, kid, but no one gets away treating Princess like that. Shows how strong she really is. She is the strongest person I know. I don't know how she's coped all this time facing it alone, but now she has me. Us, you mean? I want to help teach those two brats a lesson. Okay, buddy. Let's head back and come up with a plan. This version of Romeo and Juliet isn't going to end in a tragedy if we have anything to do with it. Claws out.
Cat leapt off the balcony and headed back to his bedroom. Tomorrow he would be Marinette's night, starting by having a word with those two. Part 8. Adrien's POV.
Claws in.
Adrien mumbled, whilst listing off ideas in his head for the best course of action. It was late, but he wasn't tired. Every time he thought of what Marinette had gone through, had kept going through, he felt a sudden surge of anger and a sense of need to protect Marinette course through him. He had heard rumours and seen moments of Chloe overstepping but behaving like that towards Marinette, and under the excuse of his name. That was going too far, and it needed to stop. He would do anything not to see his princess crumbled and broken like that. The stories she had told him as she clung to him. And yet, if he hadn't been Cat, if she didn't know, how long would she have gone on, keeping Adrien at a distance, believing the lies? Adrien stormed over to one of his concealed storage spaces behind the bookshelves. "Plag, have you seen the flip chart?" he called out as he removed a set of tennis rackets and dropping them on the floor.
"What? When we spent all night coming up with..."
His little Kwame smirked, shoving a mouthful of cheese into his mouth.
"We don't mention that name. That was a mistake. A one-off."
Adrien shot a look at Plag, who was chuckling beside him.
"What was a mistake with her green hair? What were you thinking?"
"I wasn't. That's not the point right now. Can we please focus on the task at hand? Now, have you seen it or not?" Adrien groaned in frustration, ramming a golf club's back in.
"I think it's in the other cupboard, and maybe a little more quiet. Last thing we need is to wake the house."
Plag zoomed towards the landing and disappeared for a moment.
"Kid, here."
Adrien dashed out of the cupboard and ran up his spiral stairs, pulling open the cupboard behind the CDs.
"Thanks, Plag."
He heaved it out, making sure not to cause the endless, forgotten hobbies to come crashing out on him. He studied the staircase for a moment.
"Claws out."
He grabbed the flip chart in one hand and pulled out his baton, using it to jump off, landing softly next to his bed.
"Claws in." "I'm not an elevator, you know,"
Plag grumbled, making his way to collect more cheese. Adrien rolled his eyes but couldn't help the sly smile forming across his lips. He grabbed a green and pink marker from his desk before standing, staring at the blank white paper in front of him. Countless concepts had raced through his mind as he held his sleepy princess in his arms, exhausted from the tears. But now, confronted by the daunting pressure, his mind was just as blank as the paper in front of him.
"Buddy, what are your ideas?"
Adrien rolled the two pens back and forth between his hands.
"Depends which century you want to take inspiration from. I mean, there are several medieval strategies we could try. Ever heard of the thumbscrew?"
"Plag, keep it PG. We don't want to hurt them. Just teach them a lesson. Get them to back off Marinette for good." Adrien hovered the green pens in front of the paper.
"I could confront them in front of the whole school.
That might embarrass them enough."
"Yeah, and Marinette along with them."
"Fair point.
"In private?"
"No, they may agree or laugh, but it wouldn't stop her. It hasn't in the past for either of them." Plag hovered in front of the flip chart with what looks like a black marker.
"What are you..."
Plag moved back and gestured at his picture.
"Cat could dangle them from the Eiffel Tower for an hour. A day? Before you say anything, I could see the idea cross your mind before."
Adrien had to force back the laughter that sat in his throat as he stared at the two stick figures hanging upside down, calling for help from a crude sketch of the Eiffel.
Yeah, maybe for a split second, but Cat can't be seen acting in that way. I mean, what would Ladybug say? No fun. The Black Knight would have done it.
Plag folded his little arms as Adrien shot him a questioning look, but thought better of it to ask.
It's not about having fun, Plag. It's about teaching them a lesson.
Plag flipped the paper over and let out a naughty laugh as he bounced around in front of the page.
Buddy, what is this?
Plag moved back to reveal what looked like Chloe's face, but with a black scribble across it. Beside it was a stick figure that had a cartoon stinky lines coming off it.
There's no harm in having a little fun. I could set up a trap around school, cover them in slime, my own recipe.
He pointed to the messy face and then to the drawing beside it.
Or I have a wheel of cheese I had been saving, aged to the perfect amount of stink. Plag, are you willing to sacrifice your cheese for Marinette? Maybe the love I feel for her when I'm Cat isn't mine alone.
Adrien leaned a little closer to Plag and wiggled his eyebrows.
Kwamis don't love. She's just special, that's all.
Plag said, shoving a mouthful of cheese into his mouth and moving away from Adrien's teasing chuckle.
However fun and heartwarming those ideas may be, I don't think it will stop them. And if they thought Marinette set it up, or myself, no more school.
Adrien sighed.
Oh, what if I spoke to the mayor? No, that man is spineless when it comes to his daughter. He caves every time.
Yeah, the man was opposite to his own father.
Oh, I could at least threaten Lila about speaking to my father. Get her kicked off the next shoot. I only agreed to model with her if she backed off Marinette, and then she goes and does that? I don't know, kid. She will probably counteract with lies, making you and Princess come off worse. Then what am I meant to do? I haven't come across anything like this before, apart from in teen films.
Adrien could feel his little friend stare at him.
And before you say anything, my father is different. I have no choice. Marinette, she shouldn't have to put up with that behavior. Neither should you, kid.
Plag mumbled beside him.
You know, my mum had a saying. You should always rise above, to never stoop to their level. But that is what Marinette has been trying to do, and it hasn't worked. But she didn't have you. Us, beside her. It sounds like she went out alone. Yeah, her friends would speak up, but when it happened in front of the class, it sounded a lot like it happened behind closed doors. Yeah, the toilets.
Adrien clenched his hands around the pen, causing the green ink to smear across his palms.
Wait, they said I would never date Marinette, that it was ridiculous. But we are dating. I love her.
He couldn't help a massive grin form across his face as memories of the past week flashed across his mind.
What if we made it public? Showed everyone how much she means to me? How much we love each other? And with the whole school behind us? They couldn't say anything about it then. But if you went public, wouldn't your father try and stop it? He can try, but like I told Marinette, I won't let anyone come between us, even if it means defying my father. Yeah, I think that is what we should do. Follow my mum's advice. Rise above by not hiding in the shadows. I still think you should let me set a few traps around the school. Falling paint that would dye them blue, including her blonde hair that she never stops going on about.
Plag sniggered.
Or maybe green with envy.
Why don't we have that as a backup, just in case my idea fails? Adrien laughed, rubbing his buddy across the head, to Plag's disgust.
But in the meantime, I need to plan the best day-long date for my princess, starting with walking her to school, spending lunch with her, maybe convince Alia to switch seats. And after school, we could grab ice cream, a movie, go for a walk holding hands. Sounds sweet, kid. But will Princess agree to this? And don't you think you need some sleep? Well, I was thinking, I don't think I could sleep even if I wanted to. And I want to be there when she wakes. Explain the plan in person. Plag? Claws out. He could hear his Kwame protesting as he got sucked into the ring. But Adrien had decided he didn't want Marinette to wake and sense the fear of attending school, of being alone. And he knew Natalie wouldn't enter his room until his alarm went off, so as long as he was back in time, what would be the issue? He grinned to himself. There were definitely perks to her knowing his secret identity. Cat packed a backpack with a blanket, extra cheese, phone and random tidbits before jumping out of his window and racing along the silent rooftops towards his princess. It was now 2 a.m. and his usual alarm would go off at 7 a.m. He set 2 more, one for 6 a.m. to wake if he should fall asleep, and another at 6:30 to leave to be on the safe side. He landed softly on the balcony and glanced through the skylight. Marinette was as he had left her, curled up in her blanket. Feeling a little relieved, he moved back and sat down on the beach chair, pulled out his own blanket, deciding it would look less strange for Cat to be seen off Marinette's balcony than Adrien. He left his suit on, knowing Plag would protest later, and settled down. His arms felt empty, sitting in this chair now, and not having them wrapped round his love like hours earlier, gazing towards the night sky, attempting to spot a star amongst the glow of the city and the scatter of clouds. He imagined what their date would look like as he felt himself drifting off. He hadn't expected to be startled awake by the cry of his princess. Cat jumped to his feet, still half asleep, not sure what was happening. Then he heard her call out again, her voice filled with fear and emitting through the window. She was having a nightmare. Taking a deep breath, calming his racing heart from a sudden rush, he wiped his eyes, pulled open the skylight. She was tossing and turning, becoming tangled in the blanket as she fought to free herself. Instinctively, he jumped down and tugged at the edges to help. "Marinette, it's okay. I'm here." He stroked his gloved hand across her forehead. He needed to feel her touch, skin to skin. "Claws in," he breathed. "No, no, not again," she moaned, her hand held out in front of her. Her expression displayed fear, dread, whilst her eyes remained closed. He sat on the edge of the bed and cupping his hands around hers, drawing them towards his lips as he kissed them gently. "I'm here, my love. You're not alone. I've got you." Her limbs were calmed at his voice. "Adrien?" The fear had been replaced with a tenderness. "Yeah, it's me. I'm here." He gave her hand a little squeeze before placing them at her side. He was about to slink off the bed when she spun onto her side and wrapped her arms around his waist, clinging onto his hoodie. "Stay. Please." She nuzzled her head closer into his side. He felt himself melting at her touch, her warmth, her love. "Always, my love." He managed to shuffle himself so that he was lying beside her, her head now finding his chest, but her arms were still wrapped around him as they both drifted back to sleep. A deep sleep had descended over him, forgetting where and why he was there. So when the alarm went off, he couldn't help jumping at the sensation of arms wrapped around him, causing Marinette to spring to life, holding the same confused expression. "Adrien? Have you? Why, all night?"
The blush forming across her cheeks was adorable, and calmed his racing heart enough for the memories of last night to clear. Remembering the plan he had formed with Plague on returning, and the nightmare.
No, not all night. I had headed home, but I didn't want you to worry when you woke. Then you had a nightmare.
He rubbed the back of his neck, now worried how this might seem to her. Was he overstepping? Oh, yeah, I thought that had been a dream, but I guess not. She let out a little chuckle. Thank you for being there. Adrien moved his hand from his neck and gently placed them on top of hers as he twisted the blanket on her lap.
I will always be there for you, Marinette. I love you, and there isn't anything I wouldn't do for my girlfriend.
I love you too, but I still can't believe you want to be with me after yesterday. I'm sorry for pushing you away.
We have talked about this. I understand. In fact, I have a plan on how to tackle it.
Adrien grabbed his phone from the side. He had the time.
I'm not going to let Chloe and Lila treat you like that anymore, Marinette.
Adrien, I don't want to cause trouble. I don't want it to come back on you. It's fine. She cast her gaze downwards.
It's not fine. We can do this together. Trust me.
He slowly lifted her chin until her eyes met his. In the early morning light, the ocean blue was more like the sapphire of the Mediterranean Sea. Always. There is no one I trust more, as Adrien and as my kitty.
Oh, how much he wanted to spend the day swimming in the sea. So I was thinking we tell everyone that we are serious about our feelings and now dating. I was thinking if we went public, showed everyone, then there is nothing anyone could say.
They would still find a way, she muttered.
He wasn't going to tell her how he was still planning to confront Chloe at school, in private, exposing the not-so-gentle side of Adrien, but the one that she'd only seen once before in their childhood, knowing the impact it will have. If they do, tell me, and we will deal with it together. You're not alone, my love. Never again.
How did I end up being this lucky and deserving of you? She breathed, leaning in closer to him. The alarm from his phone rang out. He needed to head back. He groaned.
Oh, I need to go, my princess, before I'm missed. But I will pick you up here in an hour. Head to school together, and after school, may I take you out on our first date?
Really? Our first official date? Yeah, I would love that. So I will see you in an hour? She turned her head and brushed a light kiss on his cheek. He could feel the heat rising to his face.
I had better head. Plague? Morning, princess. You need to get some better cheese.
The little Kwame arrived from somewhere and floated in front of them.
Plague? Rude.
Of course, Plague. Any requests? Marinette grinned at Adrien's little gremlin, not taken back by the strangeness of it all. But then he remembered she was Multimouth, which seemed like a lifetime ago now.
Camembert. The gooier, the better. Please.
Maybe you can show me, and we can pick some up this afternoon. She was directing her look towards Adrien now.
Oh, yeah. Sounds good to me. Claws out.
He felt a giddiness form over him, and not from the magic, but rather the look of awe and astonishment forming across Marinette's face, widening her eyes.
See you soon, my princess.
Cat lifted her hand, couldn't help the smirk forming across his lips as he pressed them against the back of her hand. Make sure you hurry back, my kitty, she said as he pushed the skylight open, forcing himself out and away from her. For now. Part 9. Adrien's POV. Cat jumped back through his bathroom window. "Claws in," he muttered whilst listing off what he needed to get done before heading back out the door again. First things first, informed Natalie that he needed to leave early this morning because of a project, hoping this wasn't the moment when she would start asking extra questions. When he was ready to tell his father about his relationship with Marinette, he would, just not yet. Not that he cared what that man thought. He controlled every other aspect of his life. He wasn't going to let his father decide who he should love. Marinette was the one, and he would fight anyone to be with her. After he got confirmed message back, followed by a notification in his schedule for a change of time for school, Adrien jumped into the shower, washing away the nerves popping in his stomach, and instead focused on the growing list of things he could do for Marinette to make sure things went smoothly today, plus the addition of extra treats and gifts she might enjoy, or wondering if it would be better to go to the movies or get some ice cream after school, or maybe both. They can discuss it at lunch and come up with a plan with his girlfriend for the first official date. His stomach was no longer popping. Instead, it had reached full-blown boiling point. He was excited and nervous all at the same time, which was silly really, since they had hung out countless times as Cat or as Adrien, especially over the past week, faced heartbreak, only to come back stronger. So what on earth was he so nervous about? Then he realized his date was out in the open. He couldn't wait to let people know, his friends, his father, but what if she? No, he was just being foolish. She loved him, both sides of him. She saw him for who he truly was, not what he only wanted the world to see. Only confirming it more in his heart as he held her in his arms in the early hours, knowing he loved her to the stars and back again. No, this sensation had to be more about being excited than nervous. Yeah, that was it. He quickly placed on a pair of jeans along with a warm jumper. The air this morning still had a hint of frost as he had watched his breath dance across the dawn. He had convinced his bodyguard, who Nino had nicknamed Gorilla, to drop him off at the bakery instead of the school, with the extra promise of some treats thrown into the mix. Adrien stood outside the door, his throat sticking together as he tried to swallow. The last time he had seen her parents, she had refused to see him. What if they thought he had caused her that pain? Well, he had to face them sooner or later. Rip it off now. Brace yourself. "Morning, Mrs. Duban-Chang," Adrien said, plastering his model smile over his lips as he greeted Sabrine, who was standing in front of the counter, her warm smile not wavering for a moment. "Adrien, didn't we ask you to call us Sabine and Tom over the dinner table?" "Yes, but after yesterday, which I'm really sorry." "My dear, why are you saying sorry? Marinette told us everything. How you were just trying to be there for her, after that girl had put her through yet again." Sabrine tutted her head, straightening a pile of business cards on the counter next to the till. "I am glad the two of you were able to sort everything out, supporting her. I care a lot about your daughter, Mrs. Sabine. She means the world to me, and I promise you won't be alone today. I will be there for her," Adrien said, his cheeks blushing at the soft smile on Sabine's face that reminded him a little of Marinette's. "I know she cares about you too, Adrien." He was happy to hear the tangled footsteps of Marinette propelling herself down the stairs. "My mom, I am... Oh, Adrien, hi." She paused in the doorway, a rosy blush spread across her cheeks, tucking her fallen fringe behind her ear, but she had kept her hair down for once, dangling over her shoulders. A memory of her face this morning as they had woken up together, the warmth of her arms wrapped around him. He had never felt so safe, so at home. No, shake the thoughts off, Adrien. Not now. Not in front. Hi, Marinette. You look... His eyes caught Sabine's for a moment before darting back to his girl as the rest of the sentence tumbled out of his mouth. Beautiful. You too. I mean, handsome, that is. Oh. She played with the edge of a pleated skirt, straightening out the creases, and then tugged down the pink lace knit jumper that gave the impression of cozy hugs. She took a step closer to him. Her hand seemed as restless as his, not sure to entwine his with hers in front of Sabine. Have you had breakfast? Would you like a pastry? Thank you, I'm fine. But could I get some for my bodyguard outside? He was half a meter away from her. In 2 strides he could easily close the gap. Why was this so awkward after only seeing her an hour ago? Marinette grabbed a box from the side and started to fill it with a vast selection of pastries. Will this be enough? I can add more. Adrien chuckled at the box, which was starting to bow at the bottom of it. No, that is great. How much? Adrien, you are family to us. They don't pay. Sabine interjected and pushed back his hand, holding the euro notes. Oh, thanks. That's really kind. Adrien found himself staring at the box in Marinette's outstretched hand. Thank you, he muttered, taking the box as if it had a bomb inside instead of cakes. You two had better be going. Don't want to be late now. Sabine's voice cut through the fog that had been forming in his mind. Thanks, my mum. I'll be back later. We have plans? She glanced at him from the corner of her eye as if still confirming. After school, but I won't be late. Thanks, Sabine, Adrien said, moving towards the door. He needed to feel the cool breeze against his hot cheeks. What was wrong with him? Why did this feel strange? But a good strange. Well, have fun, you two. And Adrien? You're welcome. The doorbell rang out to a customer entering the shop, shifting a smile to the man pointing at the pain au chocolat. Adrien dropped off the box of treats to his bodyguard, who shot him a wide-eyed look of thanks back, and nodded his head when Adrien informed him he and Marinette would be walking the rest of the way to school. Now it was just the two of them again. Adrien could feel his heart beat slow slightly as his hand wrapped around his girl's, her warmth seeping into him. That was until they reached the spot on the pavement before ascending the school steps, and Marinette froze. Is everything okay, princess? I'm here. I won't let go. He squeezed her hand a little, expecting her to return the gesture, but she didn't. That is, unless you've changed your mind. You don't want to tell people yet. I mean, I don't think our school friends have noticed yet, so we could... No, of course I do. I want to show everyone what you mean to me, that... She cast her gaze downwards and felt her hand tremble in his. He turned his entire body round and faced her, wrapping his free arm around her waist, pulling her closer. It's just you and me here. It's like earlier. But I get it. If you're not ready, we can... He made to shuffle back a little, but stopped when her hand reached out and played with the collar of his jacket, her fingertips brushing lightly across the skin at his neck. Her hand clung on tighter to his tweed and closed the gap between them. She glanced at his lips as she rose on her tippy toes so that hers were closer to his. She tasted of coconut and chocolate, his heart skipping in his chest as they pulled one another in closer, a hand moving from his collar to the back of his head, tunneling through his hair, not caring if she messed it up before school. The kiss was tender at first. They spoke through touch, confirming how much he loved her, swapping his heart with hers, filling each micro atom of his body with no doubt that she felt the same about him.
But at the sound of her name being yelled, followed by his own, brought their beautiful embrace to a sudden stop as she paused, her nose brushing against his as she rolled her now pink lips between her teeth, catching his eyes. The bellowing of her name for the second time, after which came Alia's name called out by his best mate Nino, caused both of their cheeks to blush. Marinette! Adrien! Explain! What is all this? Alia landed next to them, slightly out of breath. Morning, Alia. He felt the void of her touch as her hand slid from his neck and fiddled with the loose thread on her bag instead. Don't morning Alia me, Marinette. Explain. How am I seeing yous two kissing, hugging in front of the school steps first thing in the morning? Since when has this, she gestured at the pair, been official? Darting her hand at the couple. How have you not told me? Hey guys, Alia, not cool. Nino readjusted the headphones around his neck after the few-meter dash and shot Adrien a questioning look. He watched Marinette open and close her mouth, eyes wide at her friends. Well, it's... He could tell the nerves had come back, not sure how to respond. For a few days, Adrien added in, sensing the relief course through her and into him whilst he spoke for the two of them. And yes, it's official. Marinette is my girlfriend. We are together. His gaze landing on his princess, who gave the cutest smile at his words and nodded her own confirmation, placing her hand across his chest. But how? Why? From doing the play? One thing he did love about their best friend was how Alia cut through the formality and spoke her mind. A sly smile filtered across Marinette's lips and gave a one-shoulder shrug at her best friend, but squeezing his hand that much tighter. Well, yeah, but before it too? Her voice failing to remain composed at the confession. So what? You and Sunshine Boy here are official? For days? Since when do you keep secrets? You're an open book, bestie. I mean, why couldn't you tell us? Alia said, inhaling sharply. Congrats, dude. I'm pleased for you both. Even if it took Shakespeare and tragedy for you to finally tell her. Nino chuckled, stopping immediately as more friends gathered around them, muttering to each other. That was until he heard the voice from the last person they really wanted to see, drifting their way through the gathering crowd, sensing his princess tightening her grip around his hand as he pulled her closer to him, his protective cat side showing. What is all this? What is happening right now? The crowd parted and revealed Chloe strutting towards them, flicking back her ponytail and raised an eyebrow as she took them both in, and their joined hands. Chloe took out her phone and began skimming her thumb across the tiny keyboard. Adricans, what is all this? You know it's not fair to be teasing Marinette this way, making her believe that all your acting was real. I mean, Marinette will think that she is Juliet and you, my Adricans, her Romeo. A cold laugh seeped out of her snarled lips. I mean, have you not read the ending of the play yet, Marinette? Did you not get the message? How it all ends in tragedy? That's enough, Chloe. Adrien wrapped a protective arm around Marinette. Why don't you spread your poison somewhere else? Alia flicked out her hand towards Chloe in a dismissive manner. You have no idea what you are talking about, Chloe. Marinette is my amazing girlfriend, who I adore. Adrien pulled her in that much closer and kissed the top of her head gently, feeling her gain the strength from the gesture as she straightened up. Marinette narrowed her eyes, her voice calm, in control but venomous. Just because you are alone, unable to find someone to care for, does not mean you get to treat others like you do. Push them around until they do your bidding? You don't know me.
nor Adrien, nor our relationship. You get no say on the matter. She was buzzing, and he couldn't be any prouder of her. How dare you, marry trash? Talking to me like that? Like you were my equal. Chloe spat, glancing at Sabrina for backup. I'm warning you, Chloe. We may have been friends once, but not after what I heard what you did to Marinette. What you have continued to do? Trying to intimidate her, corner her, and that includes you too, Lila. He shot a warning look as she approached, standing behind Chloe. As if I need to do anything. She sniggered. We will see how long this lasts. She lowered her voice as she stepped closer. Especially when your father finds out. Not good for the brand and all that. Her smile caused his inner cat growl to vibrate in his chest as Plag hissed in his pocket. That has nothing to do with you, Adrien said through gritted teeth. So why don't you go and find some drama elsewhere? Alia said in a dismissive tone, placing a hand on Marinette's shoulder, and leave my best friends alone. For good. Oh, there will be plenty of drama when we get to see your little performance in the next couple of days. Chloe laughed. Adrien felt a hand on his shoulder. Maybe you should focus on your own acting abilities, given past performances, and stay out of things that really don't concern you, said Nino, in a tone of voice Adrien hadn't heard before, except when he was being protective over Alia. Chloe? Lila? Why don't you use your energy in a more positive way? Then you two might find someone, added in Rose before placing a hand on Ali's shoulder along with Julika. Chloe scowled at the pair. You are ridiculous. I don't care what you pathetic people think. Lila focused in on Marinette, taking a step closer. Look at her, standing there, making you all fight her battle, not able to do it herself, believing she is all innocent, forgetting what she did to me. I can fight my own battles, Lila. Marinette snapped back, exposing her wrath, reminding Adrien of Ladybug's anger, one you really didn't want to get onto the wrong side of. What? Like you did yesterday? Carrying in the stalls, crying like a baby? The three of them laughed. Adrien could hear his friends' angry voices surround them as the fire inside Marinette flickered, but his was burning brighter than it ever had. I'm warning all three of you, right here, right now, in front of everyone. You threaten my girlfriend? My best friend, added in Alia. Our friends, added in others. I will make sure everyone knows your true nature. I am Adrien Agress, after all. And Lila, no more lies from you. The industry will know exactly who you are, and your so-called career will be over. Not that you'll be part of the Agress brand anymore. Not after this stunt of yours. Adrien gestured to the camera, snapping pictures to his side, picturing the headlines now. We are all pleased for Marinette and Adrien that they have finally confessed their feelings, said Alex, standing behind them both. At long last, Kim laughed, nudging Nino's shoulder. 100% confirmed. Max nodded next to Kim. Soon everyone had moved to form a line and gathered around Marinette and Adrien, leaving the three to stand alone. He could see the heart of a hurricane form in her ocean eyes, darkening as her emotions crashed in huge waves, pounding against her resistance to remain strong. For years, you have made me think I was alone, Chloe, believing your horrid lies and allowing you this power over me. Not anymore. I see it all now. You belittle people because that is all you know. Power through hate. But you know what? I'm not alone. I choose love, friendship, which is so much more powerful. She scanned across her friends who were staring at the three in disgust. I think your reign is over, Chloe. Marinette smiled, leaning against Adrien as he folded his arms around her. The final bell rang out. Pathetic! All of you utterly ridiculous! Chloe declared. No one was listening as they darted up the steps towards class. Chloe huffed, snapping her fingers at Sabrina to follow, and stormed off. Soon it was a 4 against Lila. She stared at them with a bitterness that carved ice through your veins. You have no idea. Standing there, all proud, like you won. But the outcome of this battle does not win the war. She sneered. You have no idea what I am capable of and why. And I have much bigger allies than Chloe. In time, you will see. Marinette stepped forward and placed her hand out front. Lila, just leave, will you? We don't care about your empty threats. Yeah, Lila, Nino added with a proud chuckle and a nudge to Adrien's back. Lila narrowed her eyes, muttered something under her breath he couldn't work out, and then stormed off towards class. Wow, girl, that was amazing. Adrien grinned, tugging her hand closer to him whilst he rubbed his entwined fingers around hers. Yeah, it was. I can't believe I did that. But it felt good, you know? Marinette let out the breath she'd been holding and found he did the same. I can. I'm glad you finally showed her the fierce side of you, but I think we need to have a girly catch-up at some point. Touch base? Alia raised her eyebrows at Marinette, but her smile was wide and proud. Yeah, we really do, but not this afternoon. I have a date. She shuffled back into Adrien's outstretched arm with a blush that ran to her ears and down her neck. He couldn't help leaning in and kissing her lightly, feeling the heat soak into his lips. Girl, I just can't. Used to? Well, you can give me some of the deets in class. Well, I was hoping, could we swap today? Adrien looked at Nino and then to Alia, knowing he was pleading with his big cat eyes. Yeah, sure, dude. Speaking of class, we had better. Nino held his hand out for Alia, but shot him a quick grin, knowing they would have to have a bro, tell me all moment too. Yeah, we are right behind you. I just need... Marinette sighed into Adrien's chest. We've got you covered. Plus, I'm sure everyone will be buzzing about what happened. Alia smirked. Thanks, guys. We won't be long. Adrien wrapped his arm tighter around his princess, stroking a hand up and down her back, releasing all the built-up tension, and felt a wet patch form silently on his t-shirt, soaking into his chest and heart beneath. They were alone once again, her hands gripping onto his shirt and around his back, and pressed her forehead harder against him. He breathed for her, chest rising as one, holding it, and then released. Well, that hadn't been part of the plan today. He breathed onto her neck. She let out a light laugh. Lifting her head, he could see that the storm was clearing in her ocean eyes, the sun breaking through the dark clouds, washing them in a golden light. Thank you. I don't think I could have done that if you hadn't been there. I love you. He cupped her cheek in his hand, smudging away the tear stains with the cuff of his jumper. I love you, and I knew you could do it. He leaned closer, his lips hovering above hers. My princess, you are strong, brave, and you need to give yourself more credit. See yourself like I do,
This amazing, adorable, sweet.
She didn't allow him to finish, tasting the coconut once more on her lips.
Definitely sweet.
Part 10. Marinette's POV. Nestled in Adrien's arms, her remaining tears smeared across his top as she continued to bury her face into his chest. Her breathing matched his, rising as one, her heart bruised from hammering against her ribs. She couldn't quite believe what had just happened. She had finally stood up to Chloe and Lila with the help of her friends. Not just that, but now everyone knew she was dating Adrien. They were officially a couple. Her fingers gripped that much tighter around the fabric of his top. If she blinked right now, would it all disappear into a wishful thought? Or was it real? Either way, she didn't want this moment to end and break away from his embrace for the sake of glass, just this once. Images flashed through her mind, how he had stood up for her, protecting, supporting her. She had seen a hint of Kitty in Adrien's boldness. They really were the same person. Her smile widened at the thought and attracted the attention of Adrien, receiving a smirk in return.
We had better make our way to class. We can't keep cuddling on the side of the street, my princess, he whispered.
She jumped a little at the sudden realization of where they were as a car horn went off in the background, popping their bubble of bliss. Yeah, I think you're right, they both laughed. In a single move, Adrien went from cuddling her to standing by her side, holding her hand, giving it a tender squeeze.
I'm so proud of you, Marinette. The courage you showed earlier, I knew you had it in you.
They ambled up the stairs, making their way to the vacant locker room. She paused. Only because you gave me the confidence to be courageous. You always do. Either as Adrien or, she leaned in closer, as my Kitty. You have always been there for me, helping to expose my inner strength. She wanted to tell him, there and then, that she was his lady as well as his princess. To say sorry for not seeing the whole of him sooner. To express how thankful she was to have him by her side. For loving her. But now was not the time for that confession, but knew she would have to do it soon. To have a one-sided reveal wasn't fair on him.
I love you, Marinette. I will always be here for you. Plus, now you have a superhero looking out for you too.
He kissed her softly on the forehead, glancing down at her lips but pulled away from the temptation.
But even Cat Noir can't protect us both from the wrath of Miss Mandelayas if we're late anymore.
He wriggled his eyebrows at her, causing a burst of laughter to spill out, and felt her spirits lighten. As they entered the classroom, all of the students, minus the typical 3, hooted and cheered. A rush of blood filled her entire face, making it feel as if it was on fire from the sudden blush, and wanted to hide back into Adrien's arms.
That is enough of that. This is a classroom, not a football game. Please compose yourself, or I'll have to retract my agreement and give Adrien and Marinette a detention for being late to class.
The teacher glowered over her glasses at the class before landing on the two of them while taking their seats. Kim and Alex let out a quiet boo as the noise settled down. Satisfied with the response, Miss Mandelayas turned her back to the class and continued to add the chemical formula of how water can progress through the 3 stages of gas, liquid and solid. Marinette and Adrien took the 2 seats next to Nino and Alia and pulled their books out of the bags, placing them down on the worktops. The teacher's voice filtered in and out of her head as she copied down what was in front of her, but aware of every tiny movement Adrien was doing next to her, his arm brushing against hers, the temptation to interlock her fingers with his. It was all a bit too much on top of what had happened earlier. He placed a piece of paper between them and wrote down,
Are you okay? Struggling to focus?
She glanced from the paper to her own work, realizing she had missed off sections of notes. Not able to hold back the sigh which emitted out of her lips, he continued to write down,
You can use my notes. A perk of being my girlfriend.
Instantly putting a smile on her face and reigniting the blush back into her cheeks. She dared to gaze up at him, catching the twinkle in his eyes and the nudge of his shoulder against hers, causing her to purse her lips,
forcing back the grin and ending up rolling her bottom lip between her teeth, noticing Adrien's blush darken at her action. I just wish we were curled up watching a film right now, cozy in your arms, like we had done on Sunday. She rode down next to his, watching a soft, tender look forming in his eyes, knowing he was feeling the same about her in that moment. We can change our date if you wish. If you just want to chill, I'm okay with that. As long as I'm with you, that's all that matters, he wrote, the pen gliding across the paper. Oh, how much she wanted to close the gap between them and plant a soft kiss on his burning cheeks, but the buzz of her phone woke her up to the reality of the situation. Girl, you seriously need to stop staring at Adrien like that. You and him are giving me toothache with the sweet looks you keep giving each other. Alia messaged through. I still need the deed. Like, okay, but how? Who asked who? And why on earth didn't you tell me sooner? Marinette glanced from her phone towards her best friend, who was giving her the wide-eyed look and receiving a nudge in her shoulder from Adrien, who was gesturing his head towards the teacher. She sent back one word: lunch. After a hazy 2 hours, the two couple joined the rest of the social group in the art room, armed with a pile of sandwiches, fruits and sweet treats she had quickly gathered from the bakery. You know, looking at the stage there, it would make a much better space to perform our makeshift production than at the front of the class. Marinette threw out the comment before munching down on an apple slice. Hey, that's not a bad idea, girl. We could totally do that. Make it feel more like an actual performance than just strutting around. Alia threw Nino a quick glance, implying the strutting part was all about him. Yeah, that's a great idea, Marinette, Adrien added, but failed to look up from his sandwich, embarrassed by the slip-up. Marinette automatically reached her hand to his back and gave it a light supportive stroke, feeling him leaning into the gesture. We could paint some backdrops, blurted out Rose. Can we pull it off in 3 days? Nino said, pulling down his earphones to his neck. Everyone shifted their attention to Max, who they all knew was making the calculations on the probability of succeeding in this recent venture. We have 84.6% chance of this working. They're better odds than I thought, Alia said, raising her eyebrows and glanced around the group of friends. How about we meet here after school and make a start? Alia smiled at the group of bobbing heads in agreement. Great! I'll speak to Miss Bustier before class this afternoon. She might even let us work on it then, too. Cool. I'll speak to Monsieur Montaigne, and I don't think there's a class on. Alex flicked through her planner. What do you say, my love? Adrien breathed into her ear. We postpone our official first date until after the performance? I'm okay with that. It's like a little birdie said, as long as I get to spend my time with you. Plus, it sounds like good fun, watching your creative side come out. She resisted the urge to bop him on the nose, and then she remembered, oh, blast! That means I also only have 3 days to finish our costumes. Her palm slapped her forehead. I could come round tonight, if you need a model, that is, to tailor off. One of the perks. He wiggled his eyebrows at her, causing a girly giggle to burst out of her mouth and catch the attention of the rest of the group. Okay, seriously, girl, I'm still waiting. What is the deal with you two? Alia edged closer, but spoke loud enough to gain the attention of the rest of the group, leaning in to hear the story. Well, we were rehearsing and... Marinette teased. Adrien brushed his free hand over hers, entwining their fingers together and giving it a light squeeze. And whilst I was speaking the lines, it made me realize some things, and I somehow ended up confessing my feelings to Marinette. I confessed mine too. She had no control over the smug grin she knew was forming across her lips, but so what? She had been waiting years for this moment to happen. Why not be happy in it? Why not show the world that this amazing man next to her was in love with her as much as she was with him? That simple? Hey, we should have studied this play a while ago then. Would have saved some of us some endless scheming. Alia smirked. What's this? Adrien shot Marinette a playful grin at the sudden wide-eyed look. Oh, nothing. Anyway, the play. What backdrop should we design? Marinette interjected, hoping the others will take the lead as she shot her best friend a warning look, whilst wishing the ground would swallow her up whole. That afternoon, the group spent their lesson and a few hours after school working on a few pieces based on an Italian mansion and crafting a setup to act like Juliet's balcony. Encouraged by Alia, Marinette even gained enough confidence to practice a couple of her lines as Adrien replied as Romeo, receiving a round of applause. Not wanting to be outdone by their friends, Alia and Nino rehearsed part of their death scene, which comprised Alia lying down whilst Nino pranced around, gesturing the pain in his heart with a lot of arm movements. Leaning back into Adrien's hold, his head resting on top of hers, Marinette could make out her best friend muttering directions to Nino under her breath, whilst a wave of giggles swept through the audience. Once most of the couples and the teams finished a mini rehearsal, they all continued to decorate the stage and finish the scenic art. See, it's not going to be so scary performing in front of our friends after all, my Marinette, Adrien whispered into her ear as she painted in the details of the fake wall. You're right. I should trust my Adrien a little more, shouldn't I? She twirled around and added a blob of brown paint onto his cheek and threw him a playful look. Oh, you will pay for that, princess, he breathed, searching for a sign of a baby wipe while she darted backwards, ready to go into defense mode at his counterattack, knowing her kitty. Oh, she was happy. How could she be this happy? How was this real? Working on a creative project with her friends and her boyfriend Adrien, who happened to be her kitty, and would use that advantage to pay her a visit tonight so they can hang out more and be her own personal model as she worked on their costumes. Was this old Ladybug's luck finally coming through for her, or was it the calm before the storm, allowing her to let her guard down for a single second for the price of happiness? Lost in her thoughts, she failed to see the brush with green paint coming towards her own cheek and felt a slimy texture mush into her skin and the joy erupt out of Adrien's laughter. Not fair! I wasn't paying any attention to... She pressed her finger into the liquid and stared at it. Green? Really? I thought it was fitting. The colour suits you. He wiggled his eyebrows at her again. I thought you liked green. Knowing how to play her kitty and get a blush out of him, she leaned in closer and softened her voice. I love green. With all my heart. It did the trick as she watched his Adam's apple bob up and down, swallowing back his words, the red blending in with the brown stain on his cheek. She couldn't resist playing the winning hand as she closed the gap and lightly kissed him on the other cheek in front of their friends, much to their delight. For the next couple of evenings, Marinette's heart skipped a beat when she heard the light tapping noise on the window of a skylight. Evening, princess. His feet landed on the platform. I hope you don't mind, but I brought some homework with me. I mean, we can still go through the lines, make sure you're happy and ready for the performance tomorrow, but I have to hand in my advanced maths questions tomorrow. He slung his school bag down next to her desk chair. There were still moments when it would sink in. Adrien was Cat. And this was one of those moments. Seeing her kitty with his school bag caused a chuckle to seep out amongst the pins that were sticking out between her lips. She plucked them out and stepped closer, her 3 fingers traced along the edges of his mask. Of course it is, Adrien. I will support you whatever you need. Plus, I still have a couple of final touches to make to the jacket and dress. I can't believe how easy it is. Being both sides of myself with you, it's perfect. I am so lucky. I love you, Marinette. Cat tucked a loose strand behind her ear, but continued to run his claws through her hair until he was cupping the back of her head, encouraging her closer for a kiss. She breathed onto his lips, the words struggling to come out. Was this the moment she should tell him? Confess to her kitty that it was indeed his lady standing in front of him, as well as his princess. But what should he say? Would he be happy like she was about him, or upset that she held back after she had found out? What if he refused to do the play? Or can it wait one more day and she tell him on their first date? Would that be right? Would he still love her? I love you too, my kitty. No matter what. I will always be there for you. As the words halted in her mouth. Her emotions were about to confess, all without her realizing. His lips crashed against hers, removing the possibility and instead forcing her to remain in the presence with him, melting into his touch. I had better... He gestured to his school bag and the waiting homework. And She pointed back to his jacket. In a little bit, could you do the final fitting for me? Perhaps. What? She turned her head around and faced him, smiling at the expression she received in response. Can I get to see you in your dress at the same time? It's not the same on the mannequin. He took a step back from her. Close in. The green light filled her room as the magic transcended down his body and revealed Adrien underneath. It's not completely finished. I showed some of the girls in It's not completely finished. I showed some of the girls in class what I've made and my designs. I even saw Chloe and Lila peeking at it, rolling their eyes, but the others... The rest of the class will celebrate for you, whilst those two will be jealous of not having a Marinette couture piece for their performance. Another sign of how lucky I am. Without thinking, she batted him on the arm like Ladybug would have done to a cheeky kitty, and then watched his eyes widen. No, this was not how she wanted to tell him. She quickly added, deflecting from the moment, I'm the lucky one. Well, once you have finished off your maths homework, you have yourself a deal. Now, if only I could easily win over this equation. He sighed, pulling a fake grimace look as he settled down into the chase and used a lap table to work on. After which they spent an hour dressed in their costumes and running lines completely off book, spouting out Shakespeare as if it was natural to do so, all while confessing the love for one another and adding in a few extra kisses to the scene. I think we are ready. More than ready. We will blow the rest of the groups out of the water, or sky, or whatever it is. We will beat them, especially when we speak from the heart. So don't be nervous, okay? Marinette darted behind the room divider to change back into a casual wear as Adrien slid the jacket off and placed it back onto the mannequin. I know I'm saying this now, but I'm not nervous. I think being part of the team, building the set, whilst joking around doing mini performances, having you as my Romeo? She stepped out and pulled down her cat noir hoodie, blushing at the grin on Adrien's face. You are such a fangirl, aren't you? Oh, you have no idea. I'm your biggest fan. She tugged at the jumper out in front of her before doing a typical over-the-top fan pose by cupping her own face and letting out a squeal, causing Adrien to laugh. I beg you, no, never do that again. But I'm glad you are my #1 fan. But in all seriousness, tomorrow, we might have gotten Chloe and Lila to stop for now, but... Her hands and head drooped. I know... They might call out, want to distract, not able to give me the moment. Nevertheless, even if they do try something, I'm your #1 fan, Marinette, and I will be there for you by your side. Just focus on me, your Romeo, and we'll get through it together. His hands cupped around hers as she felt the gentle pressure of his lips pressing into her hair. I know, and I'm so grateful. Thank you. Simultaneously, he stepped back. His hands released her, but needing to show her own gesture of affection, she leaned up on her tippy toes and kissed him lightly on the cheek. And then on Saturday, our first public official date. I'm looking forward to it. The chance to show everyone just how much you mean to me. But for tonight, it's getting late, and I had better head home so that you can rest, and I won't be missed.
I don't want to push this newly found luck I seem to have. Adrien made his way to the foot of the mezzanine stairs. Plag, claws out. Cat jumped the stairs whilst Marinette scrambled up behind him. I will meet you on the school steps, like usual. He jumped through the skylight and held out a hand for Marinette. Thanks. And, of course, and Papa said he's baking some extra treats for everyone to have at break to celebrate the performance. Your parents are so thoughtful. Hey. She stroked a finger around his jawline, reading his mind. It's not a reflection on you, Adrien. Plus, my folks adore you, and there is plenty of love in this home to take in a stray. She couldn't help smirking at the shot of laughter out of his clenched lips. And on that note, princess? He jumped onto the railing without a goodnight kiss, smiling to himself as her smirk shifted to a frown at the realization. Sweet dreams, my Marinette. Wait, Romeo. She reached out and grabbed his tail so that he couldn't move. Romeo? My sweet? Cat turned. What o'clock tomorrow shall I send to thee? Marinette tugged along his tail, moving closer to him. By the hour of 9. I will not fail. It is 20 years until then. She gave him a playful smile whilst twirling a lock of hair around a finger. I have forgot why I did call thee back. Cat grinned, reaching out to her. Let me stand here until thou remember it. I shall forget to have thee still stand there, remembering how I love thy company. His gloved hand ran from her shoulder towards her neck. And I'll still stay, to have thee still forget, forgetting any other home but this. Oh, how much she melted under his touch, feeling the goosebumps forming across her skin and his piercing stare. It is almost morning. I would have thee gone, and yet no farther than a wanting bird. Let it hop a little from his hand, like a poor prisoner in his twisted graves, with a silken thread pluck it back again, so loving jealous of his liberty. I would I were thy bird. Cat leaned in closer and kissed her forehead. She couldn't help closing her eyes and embracing the loving gesture as her heart raced inside of her chest. Sweet, so would I, yet I shall kill thee with much cherishing. Good night. Oh, good night. Parting is such sweet sorrow that I shall say good night until it be morrow. Cat rolled his head a little so that his nose brushed against hers. Sleep dwell upon thy eyes, peace in thy breast. Would I were sleep and peace so sweet to rest. The lightest of kiss brushed against her lips before he was gone. Her legs felt weak as she tried to move and head back inside. Oh, what was she going to do with that cat, and how could she love him this much? Excitement surged inside of him. He hadn't managed a huge amount of sleep last night after his mind raced over the day ahead, and failed to fight back the umpteen potential scenarios. The worst one had been akumatized Chloe and Lila at one time, all whilst arguing with Ladybug after she discovered Cat had told Marinette his identity. Yeah, that dream had been a hard one to shake off. Adrien rolled his head from side to side, sensing the knots forming in his shoulder muscles, wishing he was holding a coffee as he sat in the back of the car. But soon he would receive a warm smile and a hug from his princess, and possibly a few sugary treats. Much better for him than a third cup of coffee. And yet, he couldn't help feeling nervous for the day ahead when he received a message from Marinette. Morning, Adrien. Sorry I can't meet you. Alia needed me a little earlier to help with one of the set pieces. I will see you in class. Double kiss. He sighed, but quickly sent back. Morning, my sweet. Okay, the car is pulling up now. See you soon. Double kiss. Adrien slid his phone back into his pocket, swung his bag over his shoulder, and pounced out the door the moment the car came to a stop. The buzz from the art classroom flowed down the corridor as Adrien approached. Alia's voice carried above the rest as she directed his fellow students around for the final setup. However, there was no sign of Marinette amongst them. He bopped his head back into the corridor and then back into the classroom. Where on earth could she be?
He tucked his hand into his pocket and was about to pull out his phone when Alia's voice caught his attention. "Hey, Romeo, she's getting changed." "No, Kim, we need a clear aisle down the center of the chairs, like so." "Dude," a slap hit against Adrien's shoulder blade. "Marinette left your jacket in the boys' changing room, or known as Classroom 21A. I've gotta say, I peeked a little at it, and seriously, dude, I am jealous." "Thanks." A smug grin formed across his lips at the praise for Marinette. "Where is she?" Alia said, "Getting changed." "What's with the look? The worried expression?" "She is fine. The girls got Classroom 3 to change into. Relax and get ready yourself." The words Nina was saying made complete sense, so why did this feeling of worry refuse to leave him? No, shake it off. They had prepared for this performance. Their costumes were amazing. The set was great. She was here, getting ready, and he needed to. Adrien dumped his bag in the far corner of the classroom, away from the rest. Couldn't have anyone mistake his for theirs. "Buddy, you better stick with me this morning instead of your usual nap, but you have to behave. None of your..." "Kid, I might like to push my luck from time to time, but even I wouldn't do that to jeopardize this performance. Used to have done well." Plag looked away and focused on a piece of cheese, but couldn't hide the bashful expression. "Thanks for your help with all this. I couldn't have done it without you, buddy." Yeah. Save the mush for the performance, kid." Adrien chuckled as he unzipped the cover of his costume. He was taken back, as if seeing it for the first time. The jade green fabric shone against the black cover. The tiny details she had placed into the seams and embroidered on the front panels. It seemed a shame he only got to wear this once for this performance, but guessing even Adrienette Grace would receive strained looks at wearing a Shakespearean jacket as he strutted down the street. He pulled out his phone to place into his bag and noticed she hadn't messaged him back. Strange. Maybe she was already next door. Or should he ring her? Double check. "Dude!" Nina called out, followed by 2 knocks against the wooden door. "Time! Seriously? What gives? Yours compared to mine?" "Yeah, but it's the red cap that really sets off your outfit." Adrien laughed, forgetting he was about to do, and dropped his phone into his bag. "Hey, they wore hats during that time. I checked. Maybe not as nice as mine, but I'm just ahead of my time." They both laughed as they headed out the room, Adrien failing to hear his phone ring. The art room looked like a studio theatre, with the stage dressed perfectly with several set pieces and the fixed ladder heading up to the balcony for his Marinette. Filming lamps shone down from above, and the audience was filled with students from their year and supportive teachers, including Miss Bustier in the front row with a clipboard ready to grade their efforts. But where was Marinette? Kim, Alex and Rose were standing ready on one side of the stage, representing the Montagues, whilst Max, Julika and Ivan were the Capulets in the opening scene, ready to square off against one another. Chloe and Sabrina stood at the back, dressed as Lady Capulet and the nurse, prancing on the spot and copying some of the great act moves in preparing. He had heard the phrase repeated over the past couple of days and was already sick of it. In the opposite corner was Nathan as the monk and Mark as Romeo. But where could his princess be? Surely it wasn't taking her this long to get ready. Should he check on her? But then again, if he was caught in the girls' changing room and somehow made it back to Natalie or his father... "Alia!" He mouthed out the words. "Where's Marinette?" His friend on the opposite side of the room glanced around and shrugged her shoulders. "I'll check." The school bell rang out. "Before we begin, I would like to say I am already impressed by the level of effort you have put into this production. I have great expectations for all of your performances. When you are ready." Adrien was about to call out when he saw the soft flow of pink fabric from the corner of his eyes. A sigh of relief puffed out of his mouth as he turned to face her, not expecting Lila to be smirking back at him. "There is my Romeo," she whispered as the first group took to the stage.
I'm not your Romeo, Lila. Where is Marinette? And why are you wearing her dress? What have you done?
Oh, she ran out to the changing room, saying she wasn't able to perform, and would I take her place.
Liar!
Adrien growled loudly and shifted everyone's attention onto them.
I warned you!
Adrien, what is the meaning of this? Shouting owls whilst your classmates are performing? Miss Bussier had an unusual look on her face of displeasure.
I'm sorry, but Lila?
Marinette doesn't want to perform with her Romeo, so I offered to take her place. Lila used a soft voice that seemed to cast a spell over the teachers. Are you sure? We don't have a great deal of time. Do you know the lines? Miss Bussier made a note on the clipboard.
No, she is clearly lying. She would never. Marinette hasn't.
Aww, has Romeo been dumped by Dupang Chang? Chloe called out. Miss, Adrien is right. Marinette would never.
What have you done, Lila? I warned you.
Mr. Ogress, calm yourself. We do not have time for this. We must move on and can discuss this at the end of class. But Marinette has chosen not to take part in the performance. Then Miss Rossi here is your only option for you to perform and gain your grade. Otherwise you will fail the class. Miss Bussier hovered her pen over the clipboard, waiting for his answer. He knew if he walked out of the classroom now and searched for Marinette, he would fail this class. His father would find out, blame it on his girlfriend and instantly refuse the relationship, and possibly take him out of school. But if he did nothing and remained? No, that wasn't even an option. She had done something, and he needed to find Marinette. I'm not staying here. She has done something, and that is Marinette's dress. She designed herself. Adrien, you can't throw around. Alia and Nina jumped in to defend their friend. He's right, miss. Marinette designed and made that dress. I saw it this morning. Plus, she wouldn't refuse. I saw her earlier, and Lila has been... What proof do you have? Sneered Chloe. I got this dress especially made for today, and I only offer my help, miss, Lila said in a pathetic whimpering voice. Adrien's whole body was buzzing in wrath, including his little buddy.
Lila and Chloe have been bullying Marinette.
Miss Bussier held her hand up and cutting him off. Now is not the time. What you are saying is serious, and we can discuss it at lunchtime, but for now, we need to. Adrien had enough and was about to storm past his teacher when a familiar voice boomed down the corridor. Ladybug? Lila Rossi, how dare you? Marinette shouted out, storming into the class. What gives you the right to trap me in the changing room? Adrien, finding himself taken back by this sudden sight of Marinette, and why on earth had it made him think of Ladybug? Oh, there you are. You told me you were leaving. Miss Dupang Chang, coming in here, shouting, suggesting that Lila trapped you? But stopped when a knock on the door by Mylene's father, who worked as school staff, stepped forward. Sorry for the interruption, but I thought I'd better escort Miss Dupang Chang to class. The member of staff nodded to the other teachers in the room before landing on Miss Bussier. But I can confirm I found Miss here, locked in the classroom downstairs that was designed as a changing room, but I can't say by who. It has to be Lila. Adrien wrapped his arms around Marinette, pulling her in tight, but the growl was still emitting out of him. Are you all right? Did she harm you? You know, he wasn't even going to look for you. Not for the cost of his grade. I suppose it's not love after all. There was a nasty bitterness to Lila's voice. That is enough out of you, Mr. Montaigne added, standing next to Miss Bussier. I think it's best if you head to Mr. Damocles until this mess is sorted out, Miss Rossi. Her eyes shot open as a hand landed on her chest. That's not fair. I'm the victim here. False accused? Where is the proof? Monsieur Montaigne is right. Go to the head office and we'll discuss this afterwards. There has already been too much disruption this morning. Are you okay to perform, Marinette? Adrien released some of his hold on her so that she could turn and face the teachers. "Yes, miss. I'm ready." "Glad to hear. Take your waiting positions with Adrien, Marinette. As for the rest of the class, we'll go from the top again, when you are ready," Miss Bustier directed. Lila stormed out of the room whilst the rest of the class, which was buzzing from the recent events, took their places. Adrien guided Marinette to the side and felt her whole body twitching with adrenaline. "Are you sure you're all right to perform? You must be shaken up by it." "Honestly, I'm good. I think I'm more ready than I have been. Not to hold back and let that creature win." Marinette took a deep breath and placed a hand on his chest. "I'm sorry to worry you, and that I wasn't there this morning on the steps." "As long as you are good, then so am I, my sweet." He leaned down and rested his forehead against hers. "Let's show her and everyone else the best performance ever. Love you." Her eyes rolled up to meet his. "You too, my Romeo." A wave of applause hit the couple as they bowed to the performance before giving away to the next two performers. He couldn't describe the feeling and the surge of joy rushing through his veins as he curled his princess into his arms and grinned to the point his muscles in his cheeks ached. They had been amazing. She had been amazing. All the build-up and extra rehearsals paid off. But in reality, the best part was that he could express his true feelings to his love. Living in her words as adoration filtered across her face in return. Oh, he never thought he could be this happy, consumed in a blissful love where there was no secrets. So, to celebrate our award-winning performances, we could head to the cafe around the corner. There's a double chocolate milkshake with my name on it, Alia declared to the other three as she linked her arm around Nino. "I was thinking grabbing a quick snack from the bakery. Miss Bustier wants to see me before this afternoon's class to discuss the incident. We could go after school." Marinette leaned her head on Adrien's shoulder, glancing up at him with her lips pursed together. "Sounds good to me. A snack and a quick—" Adrien's words were cut short when Kim burst through the locker door and shouted out his name. "Adrien, your father's secretary is waiting for you on the school steps." "Why is Natalie here?" Something had to be wrong for her to be here. Adrien grabbed his bag and dashed out the doors, but came to a sudden stop when he saw Natalie holding a tablet out in front, and Lila standing by her side. No, nothing good could come from this. Thank you for listening to part 10 of Romeo and his Marinette. And like I said before, this is the final part of season 1. There will be a season 2 coming soon, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Make sure you smash that like button, show me some love, comment down below what you think of it, and make sure you subscribe so you do not miss out on this next season to come, other one-shots and other series that are happening at the moment, and all the other goodies. And thank you so much for all the love and supportive messages I've received while I have been sick. And yes, thank you very much, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.